Welcome to a Steeler Thoughts Chief Feelings film review. I'm Ajay, and in this video we'll review the Chiefs-Steelers Netflix Christmas Day game, a 29-10 Chiefs victory in Pittsburgh. As always, this video is broken up into chapters, so please feel free to go down to the scroll bar or check the links in the description and go to whatever segment you'd like to watch. If you want to see the whole video, then just stick right here. Thanks to all of you who follow along, either here on the YouTube channel, if you're downloading the podcast, wherever we download podcasts, the Chiefs Steelers Recap podcast is already up, or those of you who follow along on social media at STCF715 on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. All right, let's get into this film review. The Chiefs' pass rush has shown considerable improvement since Charles Omenihu returned to the lineup. This week was no exception, as they managed 5 sacks of Russell Wilson without Chris Jones. Let's take a look at all 5 of these sacks and see what the film review can tell us about what's going on with the Chiefs' pass rush right now. We'll pick it up here with 14:03 to go in the first quarter. At this point, this is the Steelers' first drive of the game. It's a 0-0 game, and they have a 3rd and 2 at their own 38-yard line. So let's run this play, and then we'll take a look at what happened. So Wilson's in the gun empty. He drops back, then tries to spin out and loses the ball, ultimately falling on it himself. That's a sack that ends up being credited to Mike Dana for a loss of 11, and it forces a Steelers punt. So let's come back here and take a look at what's going on. So first of all, this is a very interesting formation from the Steelers. They are actually in 13 personnel, but they line up everybody out with an empty backfield. So this is Najee Harris, the running back. And on the right, look like we have 3 tight ends. This looks like Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, and Michael Pruitt out here all lined up. And then we have George Pickens as the sole wide receiver. So they come in with like a heavy personnel grouping on 3rd and 2, making you think run. And the Chiefs respond with their base. They have 3 linebackers on the field and only 4 defensive backs. They got big Mike Pennell, their run-stuffing defensive tackle, in. So the Steelers are trying to show run with their big personnel, but then they spread everybody out. So they're trying to get the Chiefs in a heavier defense and spread them out. What they end up doing as far as their route combinations, they have Najee Harris clear out, getting Trent McDuffie to run with him. George Pickens comes in, and he ultimately gets isolated on Drew Tranquill, which is a very favorable matchup coverage-wise. And it looks like they have him kind of running either a curl or it could be a whip route. It's kind of hard to tell based on how Pickens runs the route, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Washington runs an out. Freiermuth comes up and runs a curl, and Pruitt runs kind of a post. The Chiefs have this covered in man-to-man with cover 1. So this is our deep safety right here, and Nick Bolton ends up being the robber defender underneath. And if you notice at the snap, Bolton kind of cheats over toward Pickens to kind of almost be a second help there. So let's look at what Wilson sees as he drops back. He hits the back of his drop, and you can see he's looking over to his left to start. Now let's start by looking at the route that Pickens runs. So this is like a dream, right? You have Pickens isolated. Now, Drew Tranquill's a good coverage linebacker, but he's a linebacker, and this is their number 1 wide receiver. And Pickens just kind of comes up, turns, and it's almost like a little hitch route, but there isn't enough to get Tranquill to commit anywhere. So to me, if this is going to be a whip route, then he's got to come in and sell that in really hard, which a whip route would be very, very good in this situation, right? Because you've got Harris clearing out. You've got a linebacker who can't run with him, and his help is on the inside. So if you fake a route coming in and then come back out, I would imagine Pickens definitely has the agility to get open against a linebacker in that situation. However, it's hard to tell what he's doing here. If this is a whip route, he doesn't nearly sell the in route enough to get Tranquill to commit, right? He just kind of comes up and then turns back. Tranquill's able to stay with him. If this is a hitch, then you have to press hard enough vertically to get Tranquil to at least turn his hips a little bit and then turn back, so that Tranquil has to commit somewhere. The way that Pickens runs this route, Tranquil doesn't really have to do anything, and he's able to stay with him. And you can see that Wilson is first looking in this direction. It looks like Pickens is his first read. And then here he comes off of it. He doesn't like it because he sees, based on the turn here, Pickens isn't going to get open. Now he's looking over to his right side, and I'm not sure if he's looking toward Washington or toward Pruitt. Pruitt kind of looks like he's open here, right? He looks like he's won enough on this route. I mean, it's somewhat tight coverage, but like this is a throw down the middle of the field that can be placed to at least give him a chance. For whatever reason, on this side of the field, Wilson didn't like what he saw. And then by the time he's kind of come off of read 2, so this is read 1, he's looking over at Pickens, doesn't like it. Then he comes back over to the right. It's unclear whether he's looking here. If he's looking here, I understand why he doesn't like it. If he looks here, kind of looks like that could be thrown, but he doesn't like it, whatever he sees. And by that time, Dana has walked Dan Moore right into his back. So in the meantime, while all this is happening, the Chiefs pass rush, especially the edges with Karlaftis on Broderick Jones and Dana on Dan Moore, are just walking the tackles back, and Wilson feels that pressure, and Dan Moore actually bumps into Wilson's back, which forces then Wilson to try to escape. You can see him stumbling. He's stumbling here because his left tackle has backed right into him. So he tries to spin out, loses his balance, and unfortunately puts his ball hand down in order to try to regain his balance and loses the ball when the ball hits the ground, fumbling it. Luckily for him, Dana was pursuing so hard that he ran by the ball enough that Wilson was able to dive on it and maintain possession. So let's see this from the end zone view. So we can see Wilson's progression pretty well. Here's where he's looking over at Pickens. He's looking at Pickens, who just does not win his route, which is honestly, like, I'm not somebody who wants to like dog on Pickens a bunch, but like, this is a little disappointing, right? You want to be able to win your route against a linebacker. We know he's talented enough to do that. I know Drew Tranquil is a coverage linebacker that's pretty good, but he didn't really make him sweat. And so look at Wilson looking over there, doesn't like it. Here he goes over to read 2. Doesn't like what he sees, and by this point, when he's feeling the pressure, Dan Moore comes back, Wilson spins out, and this is where he uses his ball hand to try to support himself, loses the ball, and he recovers it, but it ends up being a sack for Dana, loss of 11 yards. So here I would say is a combination of 3 things leading to that. One is that the Steelers did try to get a little cute. They ran a really like pass pattern with a lot of guys who don't run pass patterns that much. Harris is out wide. Pruitt and Washington do some things with the pass, and Freiermuth was not running like a staple route out there on the edge. Like, you really are looking for Pickens to win in this situation, and Pickens didn't win. And so that was reason 1. Reason 2, the coverage was good. So from the Chiefs' perspective, they were able to cover this heavy personnel from their base. And then the Chiefs' pass rush was methodical. You don't always have to have these quick wins in order to have a good pass rush. This is a lot like what the Chiefs' pass rush was like last year, that the coverage would hold up. And so then you're really only giving the quarterback, 3 seconds or so, 3 to 4 seconds. If he can't find somebody open, the pass rush is there. And that's what the Chiefs managed to do here. They just methodically collapsed the pocket. Wilson went through 2 reads, didn't have anything, and then the pass rush was there. So ultimately a very good snap for the Chiefs defense. Pick things up with 7:22 to go in the first quarter. The Steelers are down 7-0, and they have a 2nd and 8 at their own 37-yard line. Let's run the play real quick, and then we will break it down. This is Russell Wilson in the shotgun with Jaylen Warren to his right. Calvin Austin motions over and then comes back to the slot on the right. Wilson seems to adjust the play. He drops back to throw and then bails out to his left, and George Karlaftis tracks him down as he tries to throw the ball away. Ultimately, his knee was down when he released the ball, and this was credited as a sack to George Karlaftis. So on this play, the Steelers are in a much more passing personnel group. This is 11 personnel. Jaylen Warren, the running back. Pat Freiermuth is the tight end. On the left side, we have Mike Williams. Calvin Austin starts in the slot, and George Pickens is lined up far right. The Chiefs have responded to this lighter personnel group with a lighter defense. They've added a fifth defensive back, 3, 4, 5 defensive backs on the field, and their 2 linebackers here are Bolton and Tranquil. They are playing cover 1 man. So if you see how they drop back, they end up having Brian Cook as the deep safety, and then they end up with Nick Bolton, who initially fakes a blitz and comes out as the robber. Everybody else is manned up, man to man. So Justin Reid takes Pat Freiermuth. Joshua Williams takes Mike Williams. Drew Tranquil has Jaylen Warren. Chris Rowan Wallace has Calvin Austin in the slot. And then Trent McDuffie has George Pickens. So the route combination the Steelers run to try to combat this. So first, they motion Austin right before the snap. If you notice, he went from the slot back outside. And they send Pickens up and toward the sideline and run a slant for Austin to cross. Over here, they have Mike Williams coming up the field. Freiermuth also comes up the field, and Jaylen Warren escapes out and runs out to the flat. So again, if we watch this develop, Wilson drops back, hits the back of his drop. He's looking, it looks like over here. He's definitely looking to his left. So he's either looking for one of these two, doesn't love what he sees, and then turns back to his right, looking for the slant to Austin. Which is what kind of is supposed to come open based on this route combination. Ideally for them, they can get Pickens to run through and get in Chris Rowan Wallace's way to make it a little more difficult for him to follow. But there was enough of a gap here on the timing that Rowan Wallace was just able to slip under Pickens and McDuffie and stay with Austin. So that didn't pop open. At this point, Charles Omenihu is the one that's collapsing the pocket. He's pushing Jan Moore back. He's collapsing the pocket, and Wilson spins out successfully this time. But as he's looking for somebody to throw to, he doesn't feel the pursuit from George Karlaftis coming from the other side. And Karlaftis is able to track him down for the sack, and his knee clearly comes down before he's able to release the ball. And so he's sacked. Look at it from the end zone view here. And initially you want to pay attention to Charles Omenihu rushing from the defense's right end. So Wilson drops back. He looks to his left. And look at Omenihu like immediately getting Dan Moore walking backwards. And Karlaftis is getting similar collapse coming here on the defense's left. And if you look, Turk Wharton is also getting pushback against Mason McCormick. And the benefit here is that there just aren't any lanes for Wilson to go. You can see here the entire pocket is just collapsing. This is a very disciplined rush from the Chiefs. Just pushing the pocket. And similarly to the last play we looked at, Wilson basically has time to go through 2 reads. He goes read 1, which is probably Mike Williams, and then comes back for read 2, looking at Austin, and he barely gets his eyes on him real quick, and at this point, he's having to bail. The pocket's not safe. It's being collapsed. He has to try to get out, and Karlaftis does a great job of seeing that and pursuing, and Wilson just never feels him from behind, and then you can see here his knee hits right here before he's able to release the ball. He gets sacked. So a similar situation to last time, right? The coverage held up enough for him to go through a couple reads. The coverage held up that the first and second reads didn't pop open. And the pass rush was consistent enough that at collapsing the pocket that by the time he got through read number 2, he didn't have time anymore. So that kind of complementary play from the coverage and the pass rush is really good. And again, just really harkens back to 2023 and how the Chiefs defense was playing then. They were really in concert with each other. Omenihu coming back has given a couple people now that can cause pressure. And you see here the benefit of two players complementing each other in the pass rush. Omenihu causes the initial pressure that makes Wilson move, and Karlaftis is able to clean it up. You need two people that are doing things often in order to have results in the pass rush. If one person is causing pressure, that's usually enough for the quarterback to be able to escape. When you got two people who are causing trouble, that's when you start getting sacks, and the Chiefs look like they have that now. Now let's pick it up with 12:21 to go in the third quarter. At this point, the Steelers are down 16-7, and they have 1st and 10 at their own 30-yard line. So let's take a look at this play, and then we can break it down. Russell Wilson comes out under center. He's got Pruitt motioning over to the right. Takes the snap, play action. He drops back and is sacked from behind by Mike Dana. So let's take a look at what went on in this play. Starting up, the Steelers are lined up under center, and they're in 12 personnel. Their one running back is Najee Harris, and they've got Darnell Washington and Michael Pruitt as tight ends. Here they've got Pickens in the slot and Calvin Austin as the outside wide receiver with the two wide receivers on the field. Again, there's a heavier personnel here with the two tight ends, and the Chiefs have matched with their base defense. They've got three linebackers on the field. We've got Chanel, Bolton, and Tranquil. Here's McDuffie, Reid, Cook, and this looks like Joshua Williams. No, that might be Najee Johnson. I can't see his number. I'm going to guess Najee Johnson, but we'll see if we can see him better. Oh, yeah, it's 13 right there. So that's Najee Johnson here as the corner, or as the defensive backs. There are four of them right there. 4 down linemen. Again, anticipating the run, they've got Derek Nottie in here. Although since Chris Jones was out, we were seeing a lot more of the big guys, Derek Nottie and Mike Pennell, in this game. All right, so what the Steelers are doing is they are running a play action and run to the right, and they're going to have Pruitt come over and block. And they end up blocking Dana, the end, with a tight end because they slide their line over to the right due to the play action. So Dana gets blocked by Washington, and Broderick Jones actually comes out to help on Tranquil coming in for the run fits. And if you can see, the play action's moderately successful in bringing the linebackers up. You can see Najee Johnson comes up quite a bit. This is Chanel comes up. Tranquil could have been blitzing on this play or just like really coming up to set the edge against the run. Bolton is one that like quickly notices and comes back. So if you notice, this is a cover one man. This is our deep safety. This is our underneath defender, and everybody else is manned up. And what the Steelers are doing is just a 2-man route. They've got Austin on a deep curl, and Pickens runs a corner. Everybody else is coming in to block, helping out. And so though the Chiefs do initially kind of bite on the run fake, they do only have to cover two receivers, and Reid and McDuffie are up to the task. So there isn't an immediate place to throw. But this isn't, if you notice, one of those situations where, Wilson hits the back of his drop and is hanging out, and, the pocket gets collapsed like our last two. As Wilson hits the back of his drop, Dana's already won. This is much more of that kind of quick win by an edge rusher, and it's partially because he's on a tight end, right? Darnell Washington, who is a great blocker for a tight end. But it's a good sign for Mike Dana and for the Chiefs that teams can see on film, hey, even someone like Mike Dana, who's more known as like a great defender against the run with some moderate pass rushing chops, if you're going to try these blocking schemes where you're just going to leave a tight end one-on-one on Dana, he can beat you around the edge, especially a big blocking tight end like Darnell Washington, who's not quite as agile. He can beat him around the edge and get a quick sack. And this is the kind of pass rush that just completely blows up a play, right? The quick win is the nightmare of the offense. And Karlaftis, again, doing his part. The Chiefs in general created enough muddiness here. So with Karlaftis and Dana coming in, the only option that Wilson has is to come up. And he actually does have a lane to step up, But it's a testament to how quickly Dana got to him and then got him down that Wilson wasn't able to actually get there. If he has another instant stepping back here in the pocket, he probably has the ability to squeeze up there, and then he kind of challenged Chanel, who had eyes on him. But Dana won so quickly off the edge here. I mean, he's already coming around the edge by the time Wilson completed the play action. I mean, he's won like there. Wilson's hitting the back of his drop, and he's got a bail. So, different kind of pass rush win on this sack. This was the quick win, which is not something that you see a ton in Kansas City. They've always been a little bit of a slow burn pass rush, except for Chris Jones. So very nice to see someone like Mike Dana doing it. And you can see it here from the end zone view. Dana just immediately gets Washington's hands. Washington isn't really able to get hands on him as Dana attacks his outside hand immediately right here. And Washington's unable to get hands on him and kind of control the rush. Dana keeps him off with the long arm right here, his left arm, to try to keep Washington's hands from controlling him. Gets around and gets the sack. Really good rush there from Dana. Our next play comes from 6:41 to go in the third quarter. The Steelers are still down 16-7, and they have a 3rd and 5 around the Chiefs' 11-yard line. Let's take a look at this play, and then we can break down what happened. Steelers lined up with, in the gun, 3 to Wilson's right, 1 to the left. Wilson takes the snap, feels pressure, and moves left, and then gets tracked down pretty quickly by Tershawn Wharton for the sack, bringing up 4th down, and ultimately forcing a field goal attempt. So let's take a look at what happened here. So Wilson is in the gun, and he's got 11 personnel here. So there's one running back, Jaylen Warren, and their tight end is Pat Freiermuth, giving you 11 personnel. Their 3 wide receivers are George Pickens, who's isolated on the backside. Then you have Calvin Austin and Mike Williams lined up in trips with Pat Freiermuth. So because the Steelers have only the 1 running back and 1 tight end, the Chiefs are in their nickel with the extra defensive back. That would be Chris Roland Wallace. They have Trent McDuffie here on the outside. This is Brian Cook and Justin Reid. And then over here, this looks like Keith Taylor, which is who the Chiefs bring in as their second corner when they come into red zone situations. Bolton here and Tranquil there are the linebackers, and Bolton is lined up right up on the line of scrimmage. So they've shifted the defensive line over, kind of adding him as a 5th body. And so what the Steelers do protection-wise to cover this is they slide their line to the right. So they've got Broderick Jones is accounting for Charles Omenihu. And the right guard, Mason McCormick, has got Mike Dana, but it's almost like they've allowed the center to decide whether Zach Frazier, he's going to help out with Mason McCormick on Dana or Tershawn Wharton on Siumalu. Karlaftis is going to be blocked by Dan Moore, and they're going to have, when Bolton, if he blitzes, he's going to be accounted for by Jaylen Warren. What the Steelers do route-wise, they're going to have Pickens run a fade, and then from this bunch, they're going to have, Freiermuth first motions over, and so it's Austin, the point guy, who comes out farthest. Freiermuth comes up the seam, and then Williams runs across her. So Wilson takes the snap, and you can see Bolton coming through, and Warren is just a tad late getting to him. And I think that seeing Bolton right in his face, even though Warren does a good job picking up the blitz, that kind of spooks Wilson enough to move him off his spot. And the dangerous thing about moving off your spot as a quarterback is it changes blocking angles and changes rushing angles for different defensive linemen or any pass rusher. So if you look here, Wilson, as he's spooked by Bolton and then shifting over to his left, he's looking at Pickens. He wants this fade. So that's his number 1 read here that he's going for. He's looking to the fade and he comes left, but him coming left gives Tershawn Wharton an angle to come around Siumalu now that he sees that Wilson has come across. So Wharton then gets into Wilson's face as he's trying to figure out what to do. And Karlaftis again is closing this gap too, and Wharton's able to just track Wilson down for the quick sack. You may notice that, Mike Williams comes open kind of across the field here, and Pat Freiermuth on his seam route comes open as well. And this is one thing that's kind of tough about A, reading progressions, and B, pass pressure, because clearly Wilson's going here first, right? He's looking, that's his number one read. And as he hits that one read, he gets pressure, and so he's not really in a position ever to kind of start going through his progressions and look across the field. He is now concerned with the pass rush and just avoiding the pass rush, and he never gets a free moment after that. So he never has a chance to look over at Williams or Freiermuth, both of whom were possibilities. Although I will say that Mike Dana, who kind of dropped off when they had this blitz, did a great job staying underneath Williams. He almost looks like he's trying to spy Wilson here, but look at how he mirrors and stays underneath Williams. So I do wonder if even if Wilson had gotten over to Williams in his progression, whether he would have held that ball, because Dana has a good chance of trying to knock that down. He did a great job kind of mirroring Wilson and ultimately staying under Mike Williamson's route. But Freiermuth's pretty open. So had Wilson gotten there in a clean pocket, he might have thrown a touchdown there. But he just doesn't have the chance. You can't blame Russell Wilson for this. This was read number one. It wasn't there, and he never had the opportunity to get off that read and look anywhere else. There was too much pressure throughout, and the Chiefs got a big sack. So you can see it here from Wilson's perspective. As he drops back, he's looking for Pickens. Pickens is the one guy on the side of the field. He's looking at the fade, and then he sees Bolton come into his line of vision, and it makes him slide. And you can see how that slide then gives an angle for Wharton to come get him. So sometimes, and it's hard because if Wilson just, continues back in his drop, Warren does ultimately neutralize this, but Wilson's movement is enough to get away from it that Wharton gets an angle to come get him and ultimately sack him. But you can see here, where is the chance for him to even look back anywhere? One could argue maybe if he had come off the fade earlier, like right here, if he comes off the fade and sees Williams, maybe he tries a throw there, but you can see Dana coming underneath that route. I don't know that Wilson ever looked over there, but even if he did, he's just looking at Wharton and he has nowhere to throw. But even if he did, maybe he sees Dana. Although, he could probably, this does become a window issue. If you miss this throw high, it's picked. A little short, it's tipped and then maybe picked. And then you've got McDuffie behind. So it's not like this is an easy throw to Williams. I feel like the throw to Freiermuth would have been easier, but he has no chance of getting over there. Ultimately gets sacked. So this is kind of a third way in which the pass rush won. This one by an effective blitz that got him to move off his spot. And again, it's that complementary thing. It's not just one person causing a problem and causing a sack. Well, I guess you could say that about Mike Dana's sack that we just reviewed, the one where he beat Washington around the edge. But this is really like multiple guys doing things and the rush coming together and one of them cleaning up with the sack, which is how the Chiefs have been doing it when they're at their best. And it's really nice to see that they look like they're getting back there right in time for the stretch run to the playoffs. All right, and so our fifth sack of the game comes with 14:51 to go in the fourth quarter. At this point, the Chiefs are up 22-10, and the Steelers have the ball 2nd and 10 at their own 30-yard line. So let's take a look at what happens on this play, and then we can break it down. Wilson from under center, he fakes a handoff, is back surveying, and then ultimately gets sacked from behind by Felix Anudike-Uzomah. So good to see the Chiefs' 2023 first-round pick get a sack here, and we'll break down a little more about how he did it. First of all, the Steelers are lined up here in 11 personnel. They've got one running back, Najee Harris, one tight end, Darnell Washington. Their three wide receivers are George Pickens down here, Calvin Austin, and this looks like, I can't tell, maybe that's Van Jefferson. Can't really see his number, but I think that's Van Jefferson. That looks like an 11. So those are your wide receivers. Then the Chiefs match again in nickel. They've got 5 defensive backs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like Williams, Reid. This is Jaden Hicks. This looks like McDuffie. I'm going to guess that is Najee Johnson over there. That's what it looks like to me. Yep. So they've got McDuffie here in the slot. Then their linebackers are Bolton and Tranquil, as they typically do in the nickel. One end they have Karlaftis, the other end this time they have Felix Anudike-Uzomah. So they're really thinking more pass rush situation, although that's not necessarily true because FAU has become a much better run defender. One might argue even a better run defender than a pass rusher this year, which is not what we expected. So what the Chiefs are going to do defensively is they're just going to run a standard cover 2. 2 safeties take half, and then they just drop everybody back in zone. The corners in a cover 2 have kind of both flat and intermediate cloud responsibilities. And then McDuffie drops back too. So then the route combinations here, they're going to have Pickens kind of run a corner, which is a good route to run against a cover 2. And then they have Jefferson run a deep over. Austin is going to come in like he's going to block in the run cell, and then he's going to leak out. And then after his play action, Najee Harris is going to leak over the middle as well. So if we watch this, here's the play action. Now Russell does hit the back of his drop, and it looks like he wants this over to Jefferson. And he does kind of have a beat here. And if you look, he kind of right there, he kind of looks like he's about to throw it, But Tranquil does a good job dropping back, and I think that's what deters this throw. And that's enough time for FAU to come sack him. So this isn't like a, win within 2.5 seconds rush, but this is a great individual rush from FAU, and we'll see it better from the end zone view. He does a great job beating Dan Moore around the corner and getting this sack. But we'll look into the move he pulls later. But this is very encouraging for those of us who are interested in the development of Felix Anudike-Uzomah. One-on-one pass rush, beats him around the corner, comes in and gets a sack. Love seeing that from him. But other things to note from this play, the Chiefs didn't really get that put out of sorts by the play fake. If you watch the linebackers, here, Tranquil takes a step forward, but they retreat pretty quickly, and Tranquil is able to get back over the underneath the deep over to the point that he deters Wilson from throwing it. So the play fake was not so effective in getting the Chiefs bothered and, creating openings for the passing game here. They did a good job kind of reading it and staying underneath everything. Wilson didn't really have anywhere to go. Now, let's look at FAU's rush from the end zone view. So he's one-on-one against Dan Moore. And he gets hands on him, and he does a nice snatch move right here. He grabs his pads, pulls quick, and gets around. It's a nice pass rush move. And it's not, the quickest win, but this is another situation where Wilson he doesn't have a ton here, but he's got one read. So this is where he was kind of looking to throw. But look at Tranquil getting underneath Jefferson on the over route. He's got one read that he can't hit, and then the pass rush is there. And if the Chiefs are able to do this from the secondary, if they're able to just limit a quarterback to 1 to 2 reads and then get there with the pass rush, this will be a very effective defense. It's really nice to see. And it's nice to see that on top of the coverage kind of helping to allow for the sacks, that the pass rush is coming through and you're getting individual wins like this one from FAU. where he, this is a, NFL pass rush move here. Gets hands on the tackle, snatches him, pulls by quick, corners, gets a sack. That's awesome to see. And if that is going to continue, this combination of coverage, pocket collapsing, and some individual wins, this could be a very promising pass rush for the Chiefs at the right time, coming all together for the playoff. The Chiefs' passing game looked fantastic in their Christmas Day win against the Steelers. This might have been the passing game's best performance since week 1 against the Ravens, and really first half of week 1 against the Ravens, where they really looked like they were clicking. They've gone through a lot of ups and downs, a lot of injuries, losing Rashee Rice, the offensive line play being up and down, and it really seems like things are coming together just in time for the stretch run through the playoffs. So let's take a look at some of the big passing plays or important passing plays from this game and try to look at what happened. In what ways was the passing game looking good and how that projects going forward into the playoffs. So let's start here with 9:23 to go in the first quarter. The Chiefs have a 2nd and 4 at the Steelers' 7-yard line. And it's a 0-0 game right here. This is the Chiefs' first possession of the game. So let's take a look at the play, and then we'll break down what happens. We got Mahomes in the gun with Worthy to his left, and he flips it out in the flat to Worthy for a touchdown. So how did this play happen? The Chiefs come out, and they're actually lined up in 12 personnel. The running back is here, Isaiah Pacheco, and the 2 tight ends, Travis Kelce and Noah Gray, make it 12 personnel. They've got 2 wide receivers. Hollywood Brown is lined up here, and this is Xavier Worthy. The Steelers are running kind of a pattern match concept on defense. They've got 1 deep defender here, and everybody else is kind of matching receiver routes, playing kind of a hybrid zone man scheme, kind of general zone principles, but with the ability to run with receivers depending on what the route combination is. So what the Chiefs do is they run a concept that should be very familiar to Chiefs fans. They love to run this. They ran it with Jerick McKinnon a bunch when he was their running back. They have run it with P. Ryan a couple times already this year. They like to try to get out of the backfield going in one direction and have routes going the other direction to try to draw defenders away. This is typically most successful against man coverage, right? Because you're taking man defenders away from the play, and you're hopefully making defenders run across each other as the defender that's guarding the running back has to go out while the defenders of these receivers have to come in. So you're creating traffic. In this case, the Steelers aren't playing pure man, so this isn't as effective of a strategy. On the right side, what they do is they have Hollywood running a drag, and they have Pacheco going toward the corner. But really, the crux of the concept is this. Let's run these guys in, get him out, and see if we can't get him to the edge. And so as Mahomes takes the snap, you see that Minkah gets frozen briefly by these routes coming up at him. He's trying to check, he's typically not used to worrying about a receiver being in the backfield. And one wonders if he noticed at the snap that Xavier Worthy was the guy in the backfield. If you realize that this is the guy that's that fast, you really want to make sure you stay outside of him because you don't want to get beat to the edge. He's probably not as worried about that if that's Kareem Hunt or Isaiah Pacheco back there. So one wonders if Minkah didn't completely realize that Worthy was the guy back there. And him being frozen by these routes coming in just a little bit is all that Xavier Worthy needed to get out. And once Worthy is even or outside of you, you're not going to beat him to the pylon. That was enough. Mahomes saw that he had what he needed, got the ball out quickly, and Worthy just beat Minkah to the pylon. This is a situation where when you have a guy like Xavier Worthy going out, you can't get beat to the flat. And I think Minkah is such a great athlete that he's used to most people being able to, when there's, in most cases, he's able to catch up to a receiver and beat them to a spot. But not this receiver. And unfortunately for Minkah, didn't get out there fast enough, and Worthy got to the end zone. So just nice little play design concept the Chiefs run all the time. It wasn't even against the primary look you run it against. This wasn't a pure man defense, but the wrinkle being that they put Worthy back here in the backfield instead of a running back, and it worked to perfection. As you see, Minkah, just a couple steps. It's not a lot that you have to be held inside for Worthy to be able to beat you outside. It was just a little bit, and that was enough for Worthy to get outside of him, get in for the touchdown, and the Chiefs go up 7-0. Actually, they ended up going up 6-0 because Worthy got an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that moved the extra point back, and Butker missed the extra point. So the Chiefs went up 6-0 in the early stages of the game. So we jump ahead to 5:59 to go in the first quarter. The Chiefs are up 6-0, and they've got the ball back, but they are in a 3rd and 11 situation at their own 20-yard line. So let's take a look at the play, and then we'll break down what happened. We've got Mahomes in empty in the shotgun. He takes a snap and drops back. He wants to bail right and doesn't. Ends up coming back left and flipping one to Samaje Perine for the first down. Gains about 13 or 14 yards. So let's see how that happened. All right, so the Chiefs come out, and they are lined up in 11 personnel. The running back is here, Samaje Perine. The tight end is here, Travis Kelce. The wide receivers are Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and DeAndre Hopkins. The Steelers are going to play cover one man here. They're going to have Minkah Fitzpatrick as the deep safety. And everybody else is going to be manned up. You have man-to-man coverage here, man-to-man coverage here, man-to-man coverage here. Queen is responsible for Perine, and then man-to-man coverage here. The extra defender that could be the underneath robber is Peyton Wilson here, and he's going to blitz. So they send 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're manned up across the board, and Minkah Fitzpatrick is the deep safety. What the Chiefs do in their route combination, they have Hopkins running a corner pattern. Hollywood Brown runs a post. Worthy runs a deep out. And then they have Kelce and Perine chipping and then running out into the flats. Chip, run out into the flats to help with the protection. So long developing route combination because the Chiefs need 11 yards on 3rd down. So Mahomes hits the back of his drop, and he starts drifting to his right immediately. And at that point, as he's drifting to his right, he's got Larry Ogunjobi kind of coming around, which forces him to step up. He's trying to buy enough time for these routes to develop. So he's stepping up, and he's thinking about, if you see him kind of getting ready to unload, he's thinking about throwing this post to Hollywood Brown is what it looks like. It's a good thing he didn't do it because Minkah Fitzpatrick is over here trying to cover it. So he reconsiders right here. He's thinking about throwing that post right there. Says, no, that's not a good idea. And he sees the B gap right here open up between Joe Thuney, his tackle, and Mike Caliendo, his guard. And so he starts to step up through the B gap to see. One thing that Mahomes does a lot, and I think people mistake this for being happy feet sometimes. Mahomes understands, okay, if the concept doesn't immediately get something open, and in this case it's man coverage, though he'll do it against zone for different reasons that we can get into in a minute. But with man coverage, defenders are not looking back at him. And so he knows his legs are a weapon to create, either by finding a lane to scramble or by getting defenders to move and creating passing windows. So he's not somebody that will just like hang out in the pocket. You know, he might in situations where he feels like bailing will allow the rush to get to him more easily. But otherwise, he likes to create with his legs to give him more opportunities to pass to. So here in this situation, I don't think he's bailing because he feels any pressure. I think he slid right and then slid back into the pocket because he felt this from the outside. But I think he steps up through the B gap just because he's trying to create. So he comes up through the B gap, and seeing him come, Patrick Queen ends up tossing Samaje Perine to the ground right there. And so he ultimately is called for a holding penalty that would be declined. But Queen saw Mahomes approaching the line of scrimmage and makes a move to try to come after Mahomes. He chucks Pirine. And at that moment, if you notice, Pirine is still on the ground rolling. Mahomes flips it to him. Like, he decides to make a backhanded flip right here. And you look, Samaje Pirine is still on the ground. And this is the part of it that I think is not brought up enough. But look at how much air Mahomes gets under this throw. He doesn't just kind of flip it straight, more on a line. He flips it with a little bit of arc. And I think that's completely intentional because it gives Pirine enough time to get up. Like, the ball's in the air long enough that Pirine can get up, locate it, and dive down for it. If this ball had been chucked with more force and not with that trajectory, see the arc that gets put on this ball, if not with that arc, I don't think Pirine has enough time to get up and get this ball. And to me, those little things are the kind of added genius. Everything, the idea to make this throw while he's on the ground is incredible, but then to float it enough that he's got the time that he can get under it and catch it, that's the next level of genius that I think is so impressive. And Mahomes again comes through on an incredible third down. So we can see it from his perspective. He kind of shifted over to the right. I think at this point he's really just trying to buy time because he's got long developing routes. But then he sees that Ogunjobi's coming around the edge, having... I don't know. This doesn't look like it was actually a stunt. I think Ogunjobi just started rushing outside. And then here's Mahomes winding up, and he's thinking about throwing that post to Brown. Probably sees Minka, decides it's a bad idea, then comes up and bails. And right here, look at what is happening when he decides to flip this ball. He knows Queen is coming. He knows Pirine's going to be open, but Pirine's on the ground. Like, he's flipping this ball, and Pirine's still trying to get up. And so that little bit of arc on the throw is everything. That little time that the ball's in the air that gets Pirine the ability to catch this ball. He gets up and locates it and then falls forward to get it. Incredible. Big first down for the Chiefs. They keep the chains moving. Now let's go to the next play. Right after that Pirine catch, we're at 5:34 to go in the first quarter. The Chiefs now have 1st and 10 at their own 34-yard line. And it is still a 6-0 lead for the Chiefs. So let's take a look at this play, and then we'll break it down. Mahomes is in the shotgun with Kareem Hunt to his right. He's got 2 on each side of him. He drops back, steps up, and launches a pass down the right side to Justin Watson, who brings it in ultimately for a gain of 49 yards and a huge field-shifting play for the Chiefs. So let's take a look at how it happened. The Chiefs come out in 11 personnel. There's one running back, that's Kareem Hunt, and their tight end is Travis Kelce. So they end up adjusting and motioning Kelce in tight. The Steelers here are going to play cover 1 man. Their deep safety will be here. And this looks like KZ, I believe. And instead of having Minka come down and play the robber, they're going to have Minka play man-to-man against Xavier Worthy because they're going to blitz Deshaun Elliott off the edge. So they're rushing 4. 1, 2, 3. They're rushing 5. So with the extra rusher, they don't have somebody to be an underneath defender. Everybody else has to be manned up because you have KZ deep. So with the 5 eligible receivers, you need everybody else accounting for somebody. So what the Chiefs do with their route combination, they're going to have Hollywood Brown run a deep crosser. They're going to have Worthy run the deep crosser the other way. And they have Watson go long. And Travis Kelce, it looks like the Chiefs were ready for the slot blitz. Travis Kelce comes across the formation and actually blocks. He picks up Elliott as part of the pass protection here. So as we watch this unfold, look at Kelce come in and take Elliott to give Mahomes time for a shot play, and he neutralizes this blitz. Then you see Worthy is coming across the field here with man coverage. Brown is coming across the field there. And Watson's coming up the sideline. And Mahomes arcs the deep ball down to Watson, who catches it cleanly. Good separation there. And comes down about to the 16-yard line. So, what's the best part about this play? Well, you might say the best part about this play is that the Chiefs completed a deep ball and they were on the same page, and I can't argue with that. But the other thing is, as Mahomes is readying to throw this ball right here, he has got options. Watson has some separation. He can lay it out, which he did. Look at Worthy. Worthy's open coming this way, and Brown has a step too coming this way. It is nice that in these man coverage situations now, the Chiefs have options that are getting open. Watson typically is going to be kind of a down the field guy as far as when he's able to get open. It's usually deep routes and corner routes. But Worthy and Brown are able to get open on a variety of routes, and it's nice to see you have a situation here where Mahomes kind of had all three as potential options. He threw it to Watson. I love that their timing was good. Mahomes seemed a little more intentional on this throw about getting some air under it so Watson could just run it down, which he did, and they got a big gain on the play. So now let's look at it from Mahomes' perspective. He drops back, and he initially kind of is looking down the field, kind of looking over at his crossers, and then peeks over to Watson as he steps up and decides to launch this based on his position. But look at it from his perspective here. As Hollywood's making his break, look at that separation. Hollywood's coming open. Worthy has the leverage coming this way too. Worthy's coming open. I mean, there are options here. This is so different from the film we're used to seeing from last year and earlier, kind of the middle part of this year, where everyone seems so tightly covered. Suddenly it's like guys are running open. And Watson was one of them. Perfectly placed ball. Good job by Watson running it down. And the Chiefs get a big gain and get into the red zone. Now we continue on with the same drive. It's still 6-0 Chiefs. There are 4 minutes to go in the first quarter, and the Chiefs are faced with a 3rd and 4 at about the Steelers' 11-yard line. So let's watch this play through, and then we can break down what happens. Mahomes is in the gun with P. Ryan to his left. He's got Kelsey isolated on the left side of the formation. He's got 3 wide on the right side. Drops back and throws a corner pattern to Justin Watson in the end zone for a touchdown. All right, so let's get back here. As we mentioned, P. Ryan is the running back. Kelsey is the tight end. That's 11 personnel with 1 running back and 1 tight end. Wide receivers are Xavier Worthy, Justin Watson, and DeAndre Hopkins. The Steelers come out here with 2 linebackers and a nickel formation, and they've got 1 deep safety, Minkah Fitzpatrick. They're playing cover 1 with Patrick Queen being their underneath defender and Minkah Fitzpatrick being the deep guy. The Chiefs route combination, they are going to run Xavier Worthy on an out. They're going to run DeAndre Hopkins a fade, and then they're going to have Justin Watson run a corner pattern here. Kelsey kind of comes out and runs a little hitch over here as the ISO guy, but Mahomes is reading out the front side, this route combination first. And really the idea here with this route combination is to try to create a gap for Justin Watson running the corner so that the out route underneath, and if you notice, Hopkins slow plays this fade. He doesn't get it. He doesn't like come out like his hair is on fire. Well, let's watch Hopkins really quickly here on his release. So when Hopkins comes up, he's kind of taking it a little bit slow, and that's intentional because you don't want this defender to be able to fall back onto Watson's corner route. So the faster Hopkins gets up there, the more depth this corner has and the more chance he has of getting in the way of this corner route. So it's important that Hopkins kind of slow plays this. And you see Worthy's defender occupied underneath, Hopkins defender occupied here. Then there's no one behind that prevents Justin Watson from making this catch on the corner route. The safety is still here in the middle of the field. He's not working over the top of this corner route. So here you see it. Mahomes sees it, and look at where Mahomes decides to throw it. He's deciding to throw now as Watson's here. So he's anticipating the break outside. He's putting it on a spot, and he really does put it on a spot. It's like a missile, just a straight line throw right in stride. Look at the anticipation that he throws this with, because he's winding up to throw now. He's ready to put it on a spot over here on a line, and that's what he does. He was really feeling it in this game as far as trusting what he was seeing and throwing with his chest, as Matthew Lane of Kansas City Sports Network would say. Just fired that in there for a touchdown. But I think this slow play, especially here by Hopkins, was really intentional to make sure that there was room for this ball to get in. It wasn't that big of a window, but Mahomes got it in there, and the Chiefs got a touchdown. We can see it here from the end zone view. Mahomes drops back, and he's reading the right side entirely, right? He's not even looking backside to Kelsey as the ISO guy. He sees the chance for that corner pattern, throws with anticipation, and look at that, just fires it in there. It's not like the window was huge. He didn't have a ton of room to miss, but hits it perfectly in stride. Watson catches the touchdown, and the Chiefs go up 13-0 in the first quarter. Now let's move ahead to 9:07 to go in the second quarter. At this point, the Chiefs are up 13-7, and they have a 1st and 10 at about their own 42-yard line. Let's take a look at this play, and then let's break it down. Mahomes is in the shotgun. He's got two wide receivers to his left, Pacheco's to his right. Drops back, steps up in the pocket, and throws it left to Hollywood Brown for a first down. Looks like a gain of about 13. So let's take a look at what went into this play. Chiefs are in 12 personnel. Their one running back is Pacheco here. Tight ends are Travis Kelce and then Noah Gray. So one running back and two tight ends gets you 12 personnel. They've got Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown as the two wide receivers. The Steelers are running a staple of theirs. They're running a cover 3 zone. So Dante Jackson, the safety here. Who is that? Hard to see right here. It's Kazee. Okay, so Dante Jackson, Kazee, and this looks like Pierre over here are the responsible for deep thirds. And they've got 4 guys playing underneath zones right here. So the Chiefs route combination against this, they're going to have Kelce is going to come up and sit in deeper, and then Gray is going to help with blocking and then leak out late underneath. So they're kind of high-lowing the underneath defenders here in the zone. And on this side, Hollywood Brown is going to come in side release and then come back to the outside, whereas Worthy's going to do the opposite. He's going to outside release and then come back inside. So if you watch the route combinations here, first thing to note is with these two speedsters on the side here, look at how deep Dante Jackson gets very quickly here. He drops fast, and look how deep Kazee is as well. Both of them really respect the Chiefs' speed, so you see a lot of depth by the deep defenders in the cover 3. And then you look at Brown coming in, and then as he comes back, there's a huge void here created by this depth. And one way to maintain that void is to make sure you bring a receiver out into the flat, which means that the flat defender can't sink too far, right? So if you get a lot of depth here, that can be made up for by Deshaun Elliott dropping and staying over this, being able to drop in front of this route. But if you bring out a flat defender, especially on first down, then he's going to have to, he can't cheat too far back. He's going to have to honor that flat defender, which maintains then this big gap between the deep defenders and the shallow defenders. Additionally, Worthy kind of crossing over, you can tell Patrick Queen kind of feels that. Either that, now that I think about it, he might feel Worthy crossing over less and see Mahomes stepping up. And so you see him kind of shift over to his left and forward, which creates an even bigger passing window for Mahomes. Not that he needed it in this particular play. And Mahomes, again, he decides to throw this like right here as Brown is breaking. He sees the void, sees Brown going to it, and releases the ball here. This is nice to see these route combinations working against zone. Again, these players have good feels for the zone. We knew Kelce and Gray were good at finding areas, and you can see the attention being drawn by Kelce over here. That helps too, right? So when the defenders aren't necessarily evenly spaced, when you have someone that's really devoting a ton of attention underneath to Kelce, Queen is a little bit over. So there's just a lot more room out here based on how the defenders are distributed and how much they're worried about Travis Kelce. So ultimately, the two things, the speed that causes these guys to drop, I should say three things. The flat, which causes Elliott to honor it and not be able to drop back. And then Kelce, who draws attention this way, all combined to create a huge void here. And Mahomes does a great job of quickly getting the ball in there. And it's kind of hard to see from this angle. We'll look in from the end zone view, but Mahomes actually, he hits the back of this drop. He's stepping forward, and he doesn't ever really like turn his body to make this throw across his body, because he's throwing from here to there, but he's facing this way. So he kind of throws it across his body over that way, just probably to get the throw off really quickly. But you can see it from the end zone view. It's actually quite a phenomenal throw. So he drops back, he's stepping up, and he sees he's got him open now. And look at that throw. Like, he's stepping forward. He doesn't turn his body. He's literally parallel to the yard marker, his body, the way that his shoulders are parallel to the yard marker, and he's throwing that way. I mean, that's a really, really hard throw, and he puts it right on the money. That is no joke right there. That's an incredible throw from Mahomes, right on the money for a first down. You can really see Mahomes was wheeling and dealing in this one. Now we pick things up with 13:49 to go in the third quarter. The Chiefs are up 13-7, and they have a 2nd and 5 at the Steelers' 47-yard line. Now let's take a look at the play that ensues. We've got Mahomes under center. He's got 2 to his left, 2 to his right. He fakes the handoff to Pacheco and then flips it to Worthy, who's able to turn the corner and get about 21 yards for a first down before being pushed out of bounds by Deshaun Elliott. So let's take a look at what the Chiefs did here. Now, they come out in 11 personnel. One running back is Pacheco. Their tight end is Travis Kelce here. The 3 wide receivers are DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, the Steelers are going to run kind of a cover 3 principal blitz. So they're going to send all 5 here, which leaves them with 6 in the back. So Minka's going to come down to the middle. So Queen ends up being more responsible for the left side, Wilson for the right, and then these 3 are your deep 3. So you kind of end up with 3 back and then 3 shallow. He comes down, he comes here, and then 5 coming. What the Chiefs do is, out of the under center look, they move the line to the right and leave Highsmith unblocked because this is a play action stretch play to this side. At the same time, as they run the play action, they have Xavier Worthy coming underneath the formation, and he actually slips out the C gap and comes across, and he's the primary option. Juju Smith-Schuster and DeAndre Hopkins both run kind of up and out routes. An out route for Juju Smith-Schuster, a little more of a dig for DeAndre Hopkins. But Worthy comes and leaks out. On this play, to complicate matters, Highsmith here on the edge isn't fooled by the play fake whatsoever, and he just takes a straight line path to Mahomes, much akin to what we see Karlaftis do when he reads a bootleg well. So Mahomes doesn't have a ton of time to make this play. He turns, He sees Worthy escaping, and he has to float a ball for Worthy to run under, and it's just perfect. Everything about it is perfect. Again, just like what happened to Minka, Peyton Wilson, who's responsible for the flat, is just lets Worthy get outside of him, and that is always going to be a problem. Wilson has even more of an excuse, though, because he's coming in seeing the run fake, and he's reacting to the play action. The play action dragged him farther inside than he should have been, and he's not able to correct and lets Worthy outside of him, and then the race is lost. And the pass is perfect. Worthy runs underneath it and is able to break a tackle and ultimately get a 21-yard gain. Very nice schematically from the Chiefs. So see here how much this looks like a run. We're going to leave Highsmith unblocked, and we're going to block down. Watch the line. And then you can see these steps by Wilson are all that the Chiefs need from the play action. They get Wilson inside, and look, Worthy's already got him beat to the sideline. Once Worthy's ahead of you, you're gone. Mahomes lofts this throw perfectly for Worthy to run underneath it, and then he's just got to turn the corner and gets a big gain. The last thing I will note on this play is Travis Kelce blocks Cam Hayward on this play. This has been a great blocking season from Kelce, who's always been a much better blocker than he gets credit for. The arguments about blocking drive me crazy, and you can hear I've brought them up on other forums on this channel, both on the podcast and on film reviews, but I think trying to say that Kittle was a better tight end than Kelce because of blocking, or even Gronk just because of blocking, is a ridiculous argument to me, and I'm sure I'll explain it at some point later in one of the film reviews. It's another topic for another day. Great play to Worthy, big first down. The Chiefs offense working in scripted plays, working in ad-lib plays, working by just simple play design, getting open. It's all working in so many different ways for the Chiefs passing game. Now at 4:12 to go in the third quarter. The Chiefs at this point are up 16-10, and they have the ball with a 2nd and 14 at about their 19-yard line. Let's take a look at this play, and then we'll break it down. We've got Mahomes in the shotgun with Kareem Hunt to his right. He's got 2 receivers to the left, 2 to the right. Kelce comes in tight. He takes the snap and throws a quick pass to Marquise Brown. Hollywood Brown gets about 17 yards and a first down on 2nd and 14. So this is the part of the game when the Chiefs suddenly started running a lot of RPOs. Clearly, Andy Reid saw something and felt like he had a weakness to exploit and continued spamming it over and over again. This will be the play that we show that's kind of representative of a lot of plays, and they ran a very similar concept over and over called the glance RPO concept. So let's just break down what that concept is and how they used it here. So the basic premise of the glance RPO is that you're going to fake the run, or, it's not necessarily a fake. You're going to have the option, a run option here at the mesh point, and you're essentially reading just one player. And it's the player sitting underneath the slant route that you're going to run. So they've got Hollywood Brown here on a slant route. And the defender that could fall underneath that route is Peyton Wilson. So this is just a read of Peyton Wilson on this play for Patrick Mahomes. He's going to bring the ball into Kareem Hunt here and watch Peyton Wilson. If Wilson comes in to fit the run, it looks like he's actually blitzing on this play. But basically, if he's vacating the spot underneath Hollywood, this is a throw. If Wilson had stayed back, then you hand this ball off to Hunt and let him go. So in this play, Peyton Wilson comes, so Mahomes keeps it and just throws to the spot that he vacated. He gets it in quickly before Patrick Queen can fill it, fires it in quickly, and Brown remains elusive after the catch and manages to get 17 yards. So let's watch it again from this viewpoint. And again, Literally, Mahomes is just reading this guy. Look at him look up. He's just reading Wilson. As he sees that Wilson's going, he knows he's not handing this ball off. He's keeping it, gets it out quickly, and that timing is everything to hit that window as Queen is trying to come across. He hits that window right there. Brown gets a first down. The Chiefs used this glance RPO concept multiple times through the second half, especially late third quarter into fourth quarter, to move the ball. They definitely felt good about this, and you can see why. It was extremely successful for them, and they ended up scoring 13 points in the fourth quarter. We pick things up with 2:09 to go in the third quarter. The Chiefs are still up 16-10, and the Chiefs have a 2nd and 6 at the Steelers' 43-yard line. Mahomes lined up in the gun. Let's take a look at what happens on this play, and then we'll break it down. He's got 3 receivers to the left, 1 to the right. He takes the snap, and the Steelers are blitzing. He gets a quick pass off to Kelce, fakes a lateral over to DeAndre Hopkins, and ends up gaining about 19 yards. So let's see what happened on this play. The Chiefs come out here in 11 personnel. 1 running back is Kareem Hunt. 1 tight end is Travis Kelce. They've got Xavier Worthy, DeAndre Hopkins, and Justin Watson as their wide receivers. The Steelers are running a fairly well-disguised cover 0 blitz. So what they're actually going to do at the snap, so they have their 4 rushers, and then they're going to blitz off the slot, and they're going to blitz Patrick Queen. What that ends up resulting in then is just man coverage across the board. You got man here, man here, man here, man here. And the tough one is that Elliott is responsible for Travis Kelce, but he's coming from the other side of the formation. What the Chiefs do is they've got Worthy going deep, Hopkins running an out route. Kelce, we won't really know exactly what route he's supposed to run, but we'll see that in a minute. Watson runs a slant, and Hunt runs a flat behind the slant. So the reason why we don't know what route Kelce has to run is that Kelce and Mahomes quickly identify the cover 0, and Elliott, being the one responsible for Kelce, has way too much ground to cover to be able to get to him immediately. So Kelce just comes and sits completely uncovered, and Mahomes was ready for it. Look, the ball's already out of his hands. Mahomes decided to throw that ball about now as Kelce's just turning. So comes and sits, and he makes a catch with, nobody anywhere near him. I think ideally for the Steelers, at least for the beginning of this play, while Elliott's trying to figure things out, Minkah could have tried to stay over both of these routes. But when Hopkins ran an out here, Minkah decided to charge down on it right here. And that just left Kelce wide open. And Elliott is not nearly close enough to impact him. So, I like the idea of changing things up. You go for the different blitz, the exotic blitz. But if you're going to go cover 0, I wouldn't make it such that the person responsible, because everybody else is covered. The person that's uncovered ends up being Travis Kelce because the only other defender is coming off of the opposite side of the formation. Not sure that's, if you get yourself set up in that defensive scheme, you might change the play at that point because Mahomes and Kelce are just on the same page. They get that quickly, and Hopkins was there for the lateral, and I feel like Hopkins was ready for this. So this might be something. We've seen Kelce do it to P. Ryan. He did it to Gray last year. He did it to Tony on a play that came back. But, if Kelce decided to make this throw, toss it back to Hopkins, who knows what he would have been able to do if Worthy could have made a nice block. So that's something we can look out for. Kelce is known to be interested in lateraling it. So now from Mahomes' perspective, he takes the snap and immediately is looking for Kelce. He's IDs the cover 0. They both do. They just get it out quickly. This is 2 guys that know what they're doing, and you just can't set up in a situation where Kelsey's going to have that much room off the line. Mahomes and Kelsey are going to connect every time. If you're schematically in that position, it's time to reconsider the play. And now we pick things up with 13:26 to go in the game. Chiefs are up 22-10 at this point, and they're faced with a 2nd and 8 at about the Steelers' 32-yard line. So let's take a look at this play, and then we'll break it down. Mahomes in the shotgun. He's got Gray motioning over from the right side to the left side of the formation. Takes a snap, throws it to Kelsey over the middle, and Kelsey's got room to run. He cuts back and ends up getting down to about the 12-yard line into the red zone with a first down for the Chiefs. So let's break down what happens on this play here. The Chiefs are in 12 personnel. That's one running back, Kareem Hunt. Their tight ends are Noah Gray and Travis Kelce. And the wide receivers are DeAndre Hopkins and Xavier Worthy. The Steelers are running a cover one man scheme. You can see they've got Minkah Fitzpatrick here as the deep safety. And they end up rushing 5. So the guy that would have been the underneath guy, they have Elliott blitzing. So when you have one deep safety and you're rushing 5, that means that everybody else is in man coverage. You don't have anybody to be playing an underneath zone. So Elliott's going to blitz. Everybody else is manned up. And so, again, we got one deep safety. Here's the man responsibility in this alignment. Got man to man, man to man. And then you've got Queen responsible for Hunt and Landon Roberts responsible for Noah Gray since Elliott is blitzing. And then you're manned up over here. So the key that I want you to pay attention to is Landon Roberts has Gray, Patrick Queen has Kareem Hunt, and the slot corner over here has Travis Kelce. Now, Gray motions over, and so now there's some communication on the second level, but Mahomes snaps it just as Gray comes over and gets set. So now Roberts, Queen, and the slot corner here, who's, I'm not sure who that is actually, are communicating here, and there's some degree of miscommunication. It seems pretty clear that at the beginning, Queen was going to take Hunt, Roberts was going to take Gray. Now, with the shift here, it's unclear what ended up changing, because what happens is the slot corner takes Gray, both Queen and Roberts go with Hunt, and Kelce just comes wide open. So the route combination is Worthy and Hopkins go deep. Gray is going to run like a deeper over. Kelce is going to run the shallow level on that. And Hunt is going to run up the seam. So somehow the shift, Gray shifting over here and them communicating led to some error here, because the slot corner clearly knows he's coming with Gray, but these two both go with Hunt, and look at Kelce running wide open across the formation. There was a miscommunication. Kelce is wide open, and he ends up getting about 20 yards almost and a first down well within the red zone. So we can see it here. Now, we're pretty sure at this point that this is the responsibility right now. Gray with Roberts and Hunt with Queen. So as they move, you can see Roberts is talking. He talks to Elliott. Elliott and Queen talk to each other. But it's unclear who messed what up. And then you see the Chiefs snapped it very quickly after the motion. So, but then both of these guys end up running that way. Kelce comes free across the middle. Easy play for a big gain for the Chiefs. They get a first down in the red zone. All right, so we're going to hop ahead 2 plays ahead of that last Kelce catch we just showed you. Now we're at 12:44 to go in the game. The Chiefs are still up 22-10, and they have 2nd and 10 now at the 12-yard line of the Steelers. Let's take a look at this play. So Mahomes in the shotgun. Kelsey motions over from left to right. So Mahomes has 3 receivers now on the right side. He takes the snap, rolls to his right, and flips it to Kelsey toward the back of the end zone for a touchdown. This ended up being Kelsey's touchdown that put him ahead of Tony Gonzalez as the single leader in touchdown receptions in Chiefs franchise history. He ended up dunking the ball through the goalpost to celebrate Tony Gonzalez because that was his signature celebration. But let's look into what happened. The Chiefs come out in 12 personnel. They've got 1 running back, Kareem Hunt. Their 2 tight ends are Travis Kelce and Noah Gray. Their 2 wide receivers are Juju Smith-Schuster and DeAndre Hopkins. Now, the Steelers are going to run a pretty standard cover 2 here. So they're going to have 2 deep safeties with deep half responsibilities. And then they're just going to have shallow zones underneath. They're going to have defenders, 5 defenders, just spread out in shallow zones across the underneath areas. So to combat that, what the Chiefs do, what their route combination is they have Noah Gray from this side running an out and up out to the corner. Kareem Hunt goes out to the flat. Actually, he chips first to help and then goes out to the flat. On this side, DeAndre Hopkins ends up running to the corner. Juju Smith-Schuster runs a drag underneath. And then Travis Kelce comes and vacates into the open area and initially comes and sits. So let's watch this route combination. And the important thing here is there are 2 really important things here, maybe even 3. So the first important thing here is Travis Kelce kind of slow playing his route. We talked about DeAndre Hopkins doing this earlier on Justin Watson's touchdown to make sure his defender couldn't fall back and get involved in that pass. In this case, Travis Kelce slow plays this in order for the defense to not think that he is a threat to go into the end zone. Because right now you have 2 deep safeties, each with half responsibilities. So as Kelce appears to be running more underneath, Minkah then keys on DeAndre Hopkins' corner pattern and decides to come over the top of that. That's the guy that's kind of coming into his area. So Minkah devotes all his attention over here because he's not seeing any other threat in this part of the end zone because Kelce slow played things. So the corner pattern was important to draw the defense over. That's 1. 2 is Kelce slow playing it to allow Minkah to key on the corner pattern, not thinking he has any other deep route to worry about. And then 3 is Mahomes scrambling. We talked about Mahomes using his legs to create opportunities. As he comes here, now that Minkah has committed, Kelce sees a void and decides to just pop up into the end zone. The underneath defender passes Kelce off for 2 reasons. 1, because he thinks he has deep help. And 2, because he sees Mahomes running. And so he's worried about the scramble. So he's not just going to turn and run with Travis Kelce and leave a bunch of green grass for Mahomes to possibly run. I think most people are assuming that he's going to be able to get away from a one-on-one matchup with a defensive tackle. But Mahomes sees what Kelce sees. They both see the open void. And look how early Mahomes throws this. Like Kelce's just clearing the defender and Mahomes is already releasing this ball. Just nothing crazy here. Don't have to lead him anywhere. Just put it on him. Let him turn around and make that catch for a touchdown. Really well done by the Chiefs again. So we can see it from Mahomes' perspective. He drops back. He's challenging, and you can see, look at the defenders looking back at Mahomes. They're worried about the scramble, which helps to create opportunity behind them. And Kelce catches a touchdown to take the record for the most receiving touchdowns by a Kansas City Chief. So all in all, looking at this, man, the Chiefs passing game was clicking. Mahomes was playing really well. The Chiefs schemed some things nicely. They took advantage of different deficiencies in the Steelers' defense. we didn't have a ton of miscommunication plays on this, which was heartening. It wasn't that the Steelers were just all off. I think that one play where they left Kelsey was the most egregious miscommunication. Like I've explained on this play, I don't think this was as much miscommunication as, Kelsey slow playing things and them kind of using the defender's responsibilities against them, and Mahomes using the threat of the scramble to create a void for Kelsey. But the thing that was most encouraging, I feel like, is guys are getting open against man. And I think that this is a departure from what we have seen the majority of the past 2 years, almost all of last year and then a lot of this year, was the difficulty with getting guys open. Mahomes having to hold the ball. He was able to get the ball out quick today because guys were getting open. He's trusting guys to be where they need to be for the first time, it feels like, in a while. This is extremely promising, and it should give Chiefs fans a lot of hope that we might see this offense really open up and continue to be increasingly prolific throughout the playoffs, which would be fantastic. So we pick things up with 3:53 to go in the first quarter. The Steelers are down 13-0, and they have 1st and 10 at their own 23-yard line or so. Let's run the play, and then we will break down what happened. So we've got Wilson under center with Warren behind him. There's a play-action fake, and he throws a deep ball down the left side to Pickens, who makes a nice catch, ultimately gaining 41 yards on the play. Now going back and looking into what happened. So the Steelers come out in 11 personnel here. They've got one running back, that's Jaylen Warren. Their one tight end is Darnell Washington, and their wide receivers are Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, and George Pickens. With this 3 wide receiver set, the Chiefs do bring a 5th defensive back on the field. So here's McDuffie, Justin Reid, Jaden Hicks. This looks like Najee Johnson, and this is Chris Roland Wallace here in the slot. But interestingly, instead of taking off a linebacker, they took off a defensive lineman. So they only have 3 down linemen, and they still have their 3 linebackers. So this is what they call a 3-3-5 nickel. 3 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, 5 defensive backs. And so the Chiefs are going to they're going to blitz. They're going to blitz both Roland Wallace and Chenal. So ultimately it ends up being a blitz of 1 extra person because they're rushing 5, right? So they rush 5, and they're essentially running cover 3 principles behind that. At the snap, if you notice, they're going to rotate Jaden Hicks down and rotate Justin Reid as the deep safety. And they're essentially going to have Najee Johnson, Justin Reid, and Trent McDuffie playing deep thirds. And then they're going to have Tranquil, Nick Bolton, and Jaden Hicks play the 3 underneath zone, and they're going to rush these 5. Well, unfortunately for the Chiefs, even though the Steelers are an 11 personnel, a lighter personnel group, they run a max protection. So it combats the blitz very well. So they keep Washington and Austin into block. And then Warren ends up assisting with pass protection too, and then Austin leaks out late. But in reality, this is really a 2-man route combination with max protection. So they're going to run Jefferson on an over, and they're going to run Pickens on a go. Reid has rotated over already, so he's already not moving in the direction of Pickens' go, and he's got a middle-of-the-field route to occupy him. So essentially they've assured Pickens is one-on-one. So Pickens being one-on-one, they're going to take that shot. And McDuffie actually has pretty good coverage, and he does a good job getting his head around. And it's just at the last minute, I think the one thing that McDuffie often does well but is not able to do so well with Pickens is squeezing defenders to the boundary. If you notice, Chiefs corners do this a lot and do it really well. They kind of run receivers into the boundary, and it makes it hard for them to have any room to make catches on the sideline. But Pickens is a physical guy himself, and so he's able to keep his line. You notice it's not like he's getting squeezed out this way. He's able to keep his line down the field which gives him more room and allows the ball to come at a trajectory where it comes to him. So he tracks this ball really well and refuses to be kind of pushed out wide, which would give McDuffie more room to make a play on this ball, instead staying with it, and McDuffie can't quite get a hand on it. Pickens makes a great catch and gets a big play. This is one of those things where, McDuffie's not as big of a guy. When you're going up against elite contested catch guys, McDuffie is going to struggle. And if you notice, does Pickens give him a little bit of a tap in the back? Yes, I think he does, but I don't think it's anywhere approaching something that would be called pass interference. They're running the route. This is kind of physical play. McDuffie's trying to work him to the sideline. Pickens is trying to work down the field, and ultimately Pickens wins here, and McDuffie's just a hair off. It's just a great play, a great throw and a great catch to a receiver that's really good at this. And McDuffie's good at a lot of things, and this one isn't really his skill set, being that contested catch against a bigger guy. Sometimes he's going to lose some of those, and that's okay. He made it as tough as possible, and the Steelers made a good play. I don't know that there's anything to worry about from a McDuffie standpoint. I think this is just one of those where you go, hey, Pickens made a great catch. Wilson made a good throw. Pickens is really good at this, and he showed it there. So we jump to the play right after the Pickens bomb that we just showed you. So the Steelers are moving now, still down 13-0. There's 3:24 to go in the first quarter, and they have a 1st and 10 at the Chiefs' 36-yard line. Let's take a look at this play, and then we'll break down what happened. Russell Wilson is under center. He hands it off to Jaylen Warren going left, and he gets a huge hole, forces a missed tackle from Jaden Hicks, and gets all the way down to the 12-yard line. So let's take a look at what happened on this play. So Wilson's under center. He looks like we've got 11 personnel again. This is one running back, one tight end is Darnell Washington. The wide receivers, this looks like Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson, and George Pickens. The Chiefs have countered with, again, they look to be in their 3-3-5, what we mentioned just before. They're the 3 down linemen here. Leo Chanel as linebacker. The other 2 linebackers here are Bolton and Tranquil. Then here's McDuffie. This is Justin Reid, Jaden Hicks, Najee Johnson, Chris Roland Wallace. So back in their 3-3-5 nickel formation. So the Steelers come here running to the left, and it looks like the attack point here. So you see the blocking set up. Blocking here. The guard is blocking here. Right guard is getting Pinnell. And Frazier is coming to clear the gap here. And then Broderick Jones is coming up to try to wall off Leo Chanel. With help from, I guess, Darnell Washington really looks to be blocking Leo Chanel. And Broderick Jones is coming to the second level to help on Nick Bolton. The thing that's confusing about this run is, so it looks like the point of attack may be here. At least that's how Justin Reid is reading this, right? But the question is, who should be responsible for this gap? Because Reid is coming over to here. Tranquil ends up shooting the gap behind it and kind of running out of the play, if you notice. So Tranquil goes through this gap. Reid seems to be coming to this gap. Nobody comes to this gap. It's unclear which of the two of them is off here. My feeling is like this gap over here, it looks like Wharton is really working hard to close off this gap. I mean, Reid's presence ultimately ends up being unnecessary over here. Look at Wharton being able to get into that gap. You wonder if Reid should have been the one to come in and plug this gap. It's difficult to say because here we're looking at, it's really like the left side A gap, right? The B gap between the guard and the tackle is the one that Reid goes to, but it really looks like that's the one that Wharton is attempting to wall off. Dana sets a good edge, but he also seems available for the B gap. But Pennell can't help out because first Frazier pushed Wharton out of the A gap, and then Frazier turned around and is walling Pennell off out of the A gap too. And when nobody from the second level came to fill, it just ended up being wide open. So kind of hard to tell. It looks odd seeing Tranquil kind of sprint through the opposite side B gap instead of trying to attack the center. He instead came back to the B gap, which is weird on a run that's like hitting so far outside. Just kind of flying through. I think he was hoping that there would be a bit of a wall at the point of attack and he could just get Warren from behind, which didn't end up happening. But what ends up happening then is Reid is not in position to man that A gap, and he tries to tackle Warren as he goes by, but Warren's very fast and strong lower body, so he's not going to get brought down that easily. And then unfortunately for the Chiefs, Jaden Hicks comes in too hot here. He's not able to break down and make an open field tackle. Warren steps right out of his tackle, and Bolton has to bring him down in pursuit to ultimately make the stop. So we can see what we're talking about the gaps here. So see, the run initially appears to be attacking this B gap over here. And Reid decides to go over there. You see Tranquil comes to the backside B gap. Reid goes to the front side B gap, and nobody comes to the A gaps right here in the middle at all. And if you look at Zach Frazier, he's trying to clear out the A gap. Look at him first with hands on Wharton. Then he turns around and walls off Pennell, and there's nobody here at all for this A gap. And Wharton was in position to at least challenge a B gap run, and so was Dana. So you wonder if where Reid should have filled here was here. But if not, if Reid is correct in going to the B gap, then Tranquil surely must have to fill the A gap. But instead, Tranquil goes to the backside B gap to try to fly through, but he runs himself out of the play entirely. So, I don't know. Someone who knows these run fits better than I do can explain who was supposed. It really feels like one of these two was supposed to be in that A gap. Nobody was. And so Warren flies right through. And this is tough from Hicks, who otherwise had a great game and has had a very good end of the year. But he just doesn't break down, and Warren's able to juke him quite easily and add to his run, setting up a first down in the red zone for the Steelers. Let's pick it up with 2:16 to go in the first quarter. Steelers are down 13-0, and they have a 2nd and 14 at about the 17 or 18 yard line of the Chiefs. So let's run this play real quick and let's see what happens, then we can break it down. Wilson's in the shotgun and empty. They motion Jaylen Warren back into the backfield. Wilson drops back, throws it over the middle, and it's intercepted by Justin Reid, who kneels in the end zone, ultimately getting the Chiefs the ball at the 20-yard line. So let's see what happened on this play. The Steelers come out, and they look to be in 12 personnel. Their running back is Jaylen Warren. Their tight ends are Connor Hayward and Pat Freiermuth. That gives you the 12, one running back, two tight ends. Then their two wide receivers are George Pickens and Van Jefferson. So the 12 personnel, the Chiefs combat in the red zone still by playing nickel. So the extra tight end doesn't scare them into their base. They still have 5 defensive backs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got McDuffie here. This looks to be Hicks, Justin Reid. And then in here looks like Chris Roland Wallace, and this might be Keith Taylor. The slot one I'll have to see. Yeah, that is Chris Roland Wallace and Keith Taylor over there. So the Chiefs essentially look to be running quarters coverage. So it looks like everybody's just got a deep quarter responsibility. Coming back here, and you got 4 deep, and so then you have the 3 underneath with their zone responsibility. So it's all zone, but the deep zones are taken up by these 4. They kind of split it into quarters. And the Steelers are running a 4 verticals concept. So if you see here, they motion Warren in, but they're basically going to get everybody going vertically. Hayward releases out and goes up. Jefferson goes up. Freiermuth takes his more over the middle. And it looks like Pickens is supposed to go vertical here too. Now, on the Netflix broadcast, I think most people are familiar that Nate Burleson makes the point that it looks like, since everybody else is going vertically, it looks like Pickens is supposed to go vertically too. And he gets pressed by McDuffie and kind of hangs, pulls off of his route. And Burleson hypothesized that, well, this led to Justin Reid not having to stay out wide here and allowed him to cheat over to Freiermuth's route as he's coming up and intercept this pass. This made a lot of sense to me on the broadcast, and I think it's very possible that this is true. But Dan Orlovsky brought up while looking at this film that, when Reid drops back here, he's looking into the backfield. He's not really paying a lot of attention. He glances right here over toward Pickens, and then he's back to looking in the backfield and just following the quarterback. And so Orlovsky hypothesized that he didn't really think that Reid's cheating over here had anything to do with Pickens' route. He was just kind of reading the quarterback, staying over Pickens, but reading what Wilson was looking at. He noticed that Wilson was looking to the right side of the field. Then he ultimately came over to Freiermuth. Wilson wasn't looking over to Pickens at all. So if Pickens had continued this vertically, it's possible Reid would have done this exact same thing. He's not really looking for Pickens. He's almost like kind of baiting the quarterback into making this throw and then trying to get over there to do it. And Reid actually responded to Orlovsky on Twitter saying that this is what he was doing. That Pickens' route wasn't really material in what he was doing. It was more that he was just watching the play develop and feeling like he could make a break on a throw over there, which he ultimately did. One of the things that Orlovsky said was this would have been a better play to run over when the ball's spotted on the hash, so that there would be more room for Freiermuth to come and cover, and there would be more space in the center where they could make this throw. Or even if it was on the other hash over here, then there would be more room for Pickens on this side, so that Reid would have been held over farther to the sideline again to create a gap, instead of running this play in a situation where the ball spotted in the middle of the field. Reid didn't agree when he replied on Twitter. He basically said that, he didn't say it in as many words, but my understanding of his response was that basically in this situation, what was going to happen was going to happen. He was staying over Pickens, and that when he saw what the play was, he hung over for enough time to try to get that throw, and just the idea was to bait Wilson into making that throw and to make the interception. So it's interesting. I do kind of believe now, I'm not sure why Pickens wouldn't run this route, at least try to make it so that Reid has something to do, but I am starting to believe this idea that I agree based on how Reid is playing this, how he's just focusing on Wilson, and you can see Wilson's not looking at Pickens. So Reid's not going to be that concerned about what Pickens is doing when clearly Wilson is reading the other side of the field. So I don't know. I think this may be right, that it's not Pickens' fault that this pass was intercepted, even though I think, it's probably better in his position. I mean, clearly better to just run out your route because you don't know. Maybe he would have spooked Reid and Reid wouldn't have been able to do this. But in any case, he got the interception. And we can see it, watch from Wilson's perspective. So what Wilson's doing, because then the question people have is like, well, why is Wilson making this throw? Well, remember, like, he's deciding to make the throw here, and Reid's definitely a threat here, right? So I think a lot of people rightfully ask the question, even if, if he could see Reid here, like, he shouldn't make this throw, right? But let's look at what Wilson was actually doing. So he takes the snap here, and he is looking off to his right? And I think what he's trying to do is to hold Jaden Hicks, that other safety over there who he is concerned about, hold Jaden Hicks looking over to that side. So he's looking right, then he comes right over to Freiermuth and throws this. I'm not sure that he ever scanned the field to the point to check what was going on over on top of Pickens. So, if you imagine, like, when quarterbacks are playing, it's not like they're actually able to see the whole field, right? A lot of what they imagine is happening on the field is based on what coverage they've identified and what routes they know their players are running. And you kind of fill in the gaps with that information. It's not like you're looking at everything, so you know everything that's happening. You just don't have time for that. So when Wilson looks to this way, he's trying to move this safety. He is imagining, I think, that he has this route that'll hold this safety. So he's not too worried about looking at him. And then, so imagine he's looking that way. And then at the last minute, as he's about to throw, he looks over at Freiermuth. And probably what he's trying to figure out is, where do I make this throw relative to who's there? I'm not even sure he went all the way over here, I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe the argument should be that, well, if you're looking here, you should at least out of your periphery be able to see him. Maybe he thinks he can fire this pass in there. Like, the other thing is, like, if he sees Reid, does he know that Reid is coming? Or does he just see him kind of squatting in this position, not realizing he's about to go, like, full bore this way? Because if Reid hadn't, and this is one of the things where I really feel like it's kind of predetermined from Reid that he's coming over here. If Reid doesn't predetermine this and he's just a half second slower, there's a window there for this throw to come in. Reid, maybe he can knock it down. But those little split seconds make all the difference. I think Reid knowing what he wanted to do as he's keying on this immediately as Wilson is like thinking about throwing this ball, he's going. So that's what makes it an interception. I don't know that I'm convinced that this is a bad throw from Wilson. I feel like Wilson is looking this way. He looks, trying to keep the safety away. He thinks that he's got somebody holding Reid there. Now, Reid's baiting him, but that's a good play by the safety. I don't know that he would anticipate that that's happening. He's just thinking that Reid's going to be over there. When he throws it, he thinks that Reid will react, but since he's looking over the top here, he's going to be slower than he actually was because he was firing over to get there. So he thought he had a window to make the throw that he didn't have. Ultimately, it sounds kind of weird, but I've settled on the idea that although I don't like what Pickens did, I don't think Pickens caused the interception. And I don't think this is a huge blame Wilson interception either. I think Justin Reid just made a nice play. He knew what was happening. He anticipated the route combination, and he felt like he would be able to make a break on that throw, and that throw would be the place to go, and he went and got it. I think this might just be a good play from Justin Reid and not so much reason to fault anybody on the Steelers offense for their particular performance. Although I will say I would hope that George Pickens starts running out his routes. All right, we moved to 10:29 to go in the second quarter. The Steelers have a 2nd and goal at the Chiefs' 1-yard line, and they're down 13-0. Let's take a look at this play, and then we'll break down what happened. Got Wilson. He's got 2 in the backfield. And he takes the snap, play action, and rolls to his left, quickly decides to go to the pylon and manages to run in for a touchdown. So let's take a look at what happened on this play. So first of all, the Steelers are in, I guess, what we would call 14 personnel here. We've got one running back and we've got 4 tight ends. 1, 2, 3, and then we've got 74, who's a tackle reported eligible, so we will consider him a tight end, but he's an eligible receiver on this play. So 1, 2, 3, 4 tight ends, 1 running back gives us 14 personnel. No wide receivers on the field at all. The Chiefs line up with 6 defensive linemen. So they're kind of jumbo goal line set. Then they have 2 linebackers, Bolton and Chanel, and they have 3 defensive backs, Jaden Hicks, Trent McDuffie, and Justin Reid. So what the Steelers do is they run a play action here. So they're going to have the guard Isaac Seumalo come out because they're going to run a bootleg. So he's going to be kind of Russell Wilson's protector out there, so it's not a completely naked bootleg. Hayward comes up to lead block for the fake play action. And then they have Washington and Pruitt release in pass patterns after blocking. So Washington's going to release, and then Pruitt is going to come across the back. And they're going to have Wilson bootleg over, and the goal is to either throw a pass to one of them, or if nothing's available, see if he can run it in himself. So as he comes over, Jaden Hicks drops back and really gets in the way for Washington. Pruitt actually does come across, but it's tough when Wilson's rolling to his left. He kind of needs the ability to stop to throw this route back here. And what happens is Karlaftis notices the bootleg, and this is something he frequently does, is he just fires down, and he did enough that made it so that Wilson could never set his feet. So maybe he could have thrown to someone open here without setting his feet, but hitting that angle coming back deep into the end zone is tough. And I think he realized pretty early that, look, I'm not going to be able to set my feet and throw. I don't like a throw that I have. So he just made a beeline for the pylon that I'm going to commit to running this and see if I can get it. And he just managed to beat Leo Chanel, who was coming like his hair was on fire. He just managed to beat him to the pylon and get in for a touchdown. So we can see it from the end zone view. They're going to set up the look like a run to the right. And then they have the 2 tight ends break out late. Here they come. So again, the more shallow route, maybe while he's running to the left, he can make this throw. This is the one that's really open. But since Karlaftis comes down, it makes this a pretty tough throw to go across your body while you're rolling left, especially when you have someone chasing you. So right about here, it looks like he makes the decision that I'm just going to go. And Washington does a good job of kind of dropping, which helps pull Hicks farther away and makes it easier for Wilson to get to the pylon. And he does, scores a touchdown and makes it 13-7. So we jump ahead now to 1:17 to go in the first half. The Steelers are down 13-7, and they've got the ball at midfield. They have a 3rd and 9. So let's check out this play, and then we'll break it down. Wilson is in the gun with Jalen Warren to his left. He's got 3 to his right, and Mike Williams isolated on the left side. He takes the snap and throws deep left to Mike Williams. The pass is knocked away by Joshua Williams. Steelers end up in 4th and 9, and will have to punt. So let's take a look at what happened on this play. So we see the formation. Fryer moves over to the right. The Steelers here are in 11 personnel. They've got 1 running back and 1 tight end. So passing formation here. And the Chiefs have countered by coming in their nickel. They have 5 defensive backs. Trent McDuffie, Chris Roland Wallace, Justin Reid, Brian Cook, Joshua Williams. Their 2 linebackers are Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquil, and they have a 3rd linebacker here actually. So they're doing the 3-3-5 nickel. So to get that fifth defensive back, they dropped a defensive lineman instead of a linebacker. So they've got 3 linebackers. In addition to Bolton and Tranquil, they have Leo Chanel and 3 down linemen. So the Steelers have Mike Williams isolated over on the left side, and they've got Pickens and Calvin Austin here on the side with the tight, where they motion the tight end Pat Freiermuth. So let's look at the Chiefs coverage first to start. So the Chiefs come out. Initially, this looks like it could be a 2 high with Justin Reid and Brian Cook deep, but they bring Reid down, and they end up kind of showing their threatening blitz with Bolton, Reid, and if you notice, Chris Roland Wallace is kind of sneaking over here too. So this looks like a single high coverage or possibly a cover 0, right? When you're looking at it from this vantage point, you've got guys mugged up underneath. You have 1 safety back. It's possible they send the house and then the safety is going to be manned up, maybe on Freiermuth or on Pickens, depending on how they mess with their coverages. Or it's possible that they don't blitz that much and the safety is just 1 deep safety. Just remember that with the 5 eligible receivers, if you rush 5, you can have a deep safety. If you rush 6 or more, then the only way you can have someone deep is if you leave somebody uncovered if you're running man coverage. Otherwise, you have to have some kind of zone blitz if you're rushing 6 or more. So that's what it looks like to Wilson at the snap, that we've got Cook here in single high having shifted from because Reid came down. Then at the snap, watch what happens. So Joshua Williams is kind of dropping back here a little bit. He kind of reveals what he's going to do, as I think he's anticipating the snap here. Watch him kind of dropping back, then realizing they're not going to snap it, then coming back up. But then at the snap, what does he do? He's bailing out into a deep half. So the Chiefs are actually running a cover 2 man. So Brian Cook shifts over, and he's going to take the deep half on this side, and Joshua Williams is going to drop back and take the deep half over here. Everything else is man coverage. So they put Tranquil man-to-man on Mike Williams. Nick Bolton is man-to-man on Jalen Warren. Justin Reid is running with Pat Freiermuth. And then the Chiefs always do like directional responsibility here. So the outside release on this side, McDuffie is going to run with. The inside release, Chris Roland Wallace is going to run with. So everything's kind of mugged up initially. They're disguising. It's unclear what they're going to actually do, but this ultimately just ends up being cover 2 man. So they can only rush 4. Otherwise, again, if you have 2 people back deep, in order to have your 5 guys to cover the 5 eligible wide receivers, you can only rush 4. Otherwise, you're going to leave somebody open. So what the Steelers do in their route combination, they send Mike Williams deep, which is a really good route to run in this situation, right? Because Joshua Williams is trying to bail to his half. The linebacker is trying to get out to cover Williams. So Williams going this way creates a window there for the throw to come. On this side, they're going to have Freiermuth run a corner route. They're going to have Pickens release out. And then Austin is going to come in and want to run a whip route. And the Chiefs end up covering it pretty well. But as you can see here, watch up top. This is where Williams has to bail out, Joshua that is. And so Mike Williams is running with a safety, a corner trying to play safety over top, and a linebacker trying to cover him man-to-man. And I think one thing that's kind of crucial about how Joshua Williams played this is he didn't rotate too far into the middle of the field. Because ultimately, you want extra attention on Mike Williams. He's being covered by a linebacker here. Brian Cook is over there to be on top of everything. Unfortunately for the Chiefs, they didn't have a middle route that would threaten. Because if you had Cook trying to make decisions here, and then Williams is cheating over on this side, then it's possible that you get somebody wide open down the middle of the field. But fortunately for the Chiefs, Freiermuth's running a corner, so Cook can kind of stay on top of both of these routes over here. Wilson recognizes this and throws to Mike Williams. But like we said, Joshua Williams, he never really gets farther in than about the numbers. He stays pretty wide, which is crucial to this play. And then watch him after he bails. He turns his hips when he sees the throw and gets over there. This is well placed by Wilson. Ideally, maybe Wilson, if he places this like another half yard or yard outside, like right down the sideline, Williams can't get there. But this is a great play by Joshua Williams. He stayed wide, he keyed on the throw, he got over there and just got his hand enough to deflect it. I mean, Mike Williams has such great ball skills that when this popped up in the air, I was like, oh, God, he's going to catch that. But he just got enough on it to knock it down. Great play by Joshua Williams. He had so much to do on this play, and he managed to cover it and do everything. So look at it from Wilson's perspective. He's going to drop back, and looks to be looking over toward Freiermuth. And remember, Justin Reid is having to bail to go play man on him after coming up in the A-gap. He looks to Freiermuth. He sees Mike Williams, and he wants that whole shot. And Joshua Williams just does such a good job closing this. Because there was a window. This was a good place to throw the ball, but Williams just got there, and he's fast enough and has got those long arms and was able to do just enough to make sure Williams couldn't catch it. Really, really great play. And I think one of the reasons why this is so important is now that there isn't Jalen Watson, the question is this Chiefs secondary playing at a high enough level that they can run these kind of varied coverages from Spagnuolo? So it's nice to see, yes, he can drop Joshua Williams into a deep half and he can make a play here over the top of a good receiver running a deep route. That bodes well for what the Chiefs are going to be able to do down the stretch run in the playoffs with their coverages. It looks like they're not going to have to be like purely vanilla. They're starting to trust this coverage team to do a little bit more, which is exciting. So we pick things up with 11:05 to go in the third quarter. The Steelers are down 16-7, and they have a 3rd and 14 at their own 25-yard line. So let's take a look at this play, and then we can break it down. Wilson is in the gun. He's got Freiermuth in motion, 3 to his right, Austin isolated on the left. He takes the snap, and he throws left on a corner pattern to Austin, who catches it for the first down, moving the chains on 3rd and 14. So let's take a look at what happened here on this play. First of all, the Steelers again in 11 personnel. That's 1 running back, 1 tight end. The tight end's Pat Freiermuth. They've got 2 receivers over to the right, Jefferson and Pickens, and then Calvin Austin is isolated over on the left. So the Chiefs, to come out against this 11 personnel, have 5 defensive backs on the field. They're continuing to run that 3-3-5 nickel, so they're keeping 3 linebackers on the field as well. So here, well, no, actually, I misspoke here. This is interesting. They are in a dime package. So I don't know that I've seen this one yet. I mean, I'm sure they've done it before, but I don't recall it. So this is 6 defensive backs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2 linebackers. They've got Bolton and they've got Chanel, and then only 3 down linemen. So this would be a 3-2-6 formation. 3 down linemen, 2 linebackers, 6 defensive backs. So it's a dime package with 2 linebackers. Interesting that in that dime they decided to go with Chanel instead of Tranquil, who's more the coverage linebacker. You wonder if that's just a little bit more insurance against a potential run. Wow, that's a very interesting personnel grouping for them, because they go light on the D line. They've got Karlaftis, Wharton, and Amenahu. All 3 guys that are, more toward pass rush. I mean, since Amenahu and Karlaftis are going to be okay, they're going to be pretty good against a run, like any Spags defensive end. Wharton certainly doesn't known as a primary run defender, but he's again good against the run. He's fine. So it's interesting. They go light, but they get a heavier linebacker instead of their lighter linebacker and come in the dime with 2 linebackers. Interesting formation for the Chiefs. And from this, they're just going to run a cover 1 man. So if you see at the snap, they're dropping Brian Cook. They've got Reid spinning down. They end up here rushing just the 4. Chanel appears to be spying or playing underneath. They rush 4 here. I'm not sure if the goal was to have Bolton just cover Warren or if Bolton's blitzing here. and Chanel would be the guy that would cover Warren. But if you notice, Chanel's not like actually rushing. He's just hanging out underneath. And since there are only 4 eligible wide receivers that are coming out on their pass pattern, they've got everybody covered up. Very interesting formation. So what the Steelers do here is they've got Calvin Austin running a corner pattern, and then they've got Pickens and Jefferson clearing out and then without breaking routes. And so at the snap, Wilson starts by looking over to his right. He sees the one-on-one matchup with Austin on Najee Johnson, and he goes to that. And I want you to watch the route that Austin runs, because he does a good job of, so he ultimately wants to get outside of Najee Johnson, right? He's running a corner. He releases inside right here, getting inside leverage. And so initially you're thinking, okay, from this position, it's kind of tough to get outside, right? Ultimately, he wants to break outside. The corner has the outside leverage. But look at the way he runs this route. He runs it kind of committing to the inside. And right when he gets Najee Johnson to commit, he stutters and manages to cross his face. Look at this. Najee Johnson turns his hips. He started to run with him. And then look at this step from Austin. Boom. Crosses his face immediately and gets him turned around. And look at how little movement it takes Calvin Austin to change direction here. It's a hard step, boom, and now he's going to the corner, and he tosses his head back to make sure that he doesn't run into Najee Johnson. But you can see here the difference between someone with like good change of direction and intentionality and someone with okay change of direction but also who's reacting. You can see the difference in how quickly Austin's able to change his direction, and look at Najee Johnson having to kind of loop around because he's just reacting. He wasn't ready for this. And look at how much separation that creates. I mean, this is such a good route by Calvin Austin. Release inside, get him going in that direction. Hit that. This first step is so crucial. He hits the hard step here, changes directions quickly out, and look at that. He creates so much separation. This is an easy throw for Russell Wilson, and a great catch, and just an overall great play from Calvin Austin to get the first down here. This is 3rd and 14. So from Wilson's perspective, I think he initially will drop back and look over, check on Pickens and Jefferson. It could have been he goes so quickly over left that it's possible he's just looking over there to make sure that the deep safety doesn't just completely key on Austin. Not that, he would have had a ton of ground to cover to go get there, but it doesn't look like Wilson's actually like waiting for someone to come open on the right side here. He just kind of looks over, sees Austin winning his route, and look at the separation created by Austin's route. I mean, that's easy for the offense. Great play by Calvin Austin, and a first down to move the chains. So we're going to continue on the same drive. We're here with 8:30 to go in the third quarter. The Steelers have a 2nd and 4 at the Chiefs' 38-yard line or so. Still down 16-7. So let's check out the play that's run here, and then we'll talk about it. Wilson in the gun. He's got 3 to the right, 1 to the left again. He throws a quick pass out to the flat, and Jaylen Warren is able to take quite a bit of yardage after the catch. He breaks a tackle there by McDuffie and Bolton, ends up with a gain of about 17 yards or so, and a first down for the Steelers, getting them down into the red zone. So, let's see. Well, actually, that's more than a 17, about a 21-yard gain to the 17-yard line. So let's see what the Steelers do here. They are lined up in the shotgun in 11 personnel. One running back is Jaylen Warren. Their tight end is Darnell Washington. Now, wide receivers, they've got Pickens isolated on the left, Jefferson in the slot, and Austin over here on the right. Now, the Chiefs come out in their nickel personnel. They've got 5 defensive backs here, and then their 2 linebackers are Bolton and Tranquil. But the Chiefs get kind of exotic with their coverage, if you see. So what they end up doing is they run a simulated pressure. Well, it's actually a real blitz. So they've got Bolton and Tranquil up here, Roland Wallace in the slot. And if there's one thing that we've kind of harped on a bunch on our film reviews this year, is that when Spags gets guys in the slot, especially in condensed formations, this actually isn't as close as typically we look at. But when you get a corner that he likes to blitz, which honestly, I don't know that he's seen a corner he doesn't like to blitz, but you got them over the slot guy, you got to worry about the slot blitz. Like I said, this is a bit of a wider split than usual. Oftentimes he's blitzing guys that are lined up more in kind of this latitude because it just makes it easier. There's less distance to cover. So that's what he does here. He blitzes Chris Roland Wallace off the edge, and he blitzes Drew Tranquil. But to maintain the ability to cover everybody in his cover one, because he's dropping Justin Reid as the single safety, he drops out Big Mike Pennell, which he loves to get creative with these linemen that he drops. And the idea here is that you want to drop the lineman into an area that could prevent a hot throw, because once you got a blitz, you just don't want the quick hot throw in the area vacated by the blitzer. In this case, he's trying to cover the area vacated by Drew Tranquil. And so Pennell drops back, and they have Tranquil blitz right here through the B gap. So the idea is that he could get a free release. Isaac Seumalo actually does a good job of noticing that Pennell's dropping and trying to at least get a hand on and impede Tranquil a little bit as he goes by so he doesn't come completely free. But I think more than anything what this play shows, and let's go over the Steelers route combination real quick before. So you've got slant flat concepts here. There's a slant, Warren go to the flat, Austin slant, Jefferson go to the flat. And then Darnell Washington comes and just runs a hitch. So they're ready. This is a pass pattern that is ready for an exotic blitz here. And Wilson's recognition is so fast. He sees the blitz. He sees that now Pickens is going to come up on his slant. There's going to be a vacated flat area. The potential flat defender in Tranquil is gone. He's being replaced by Mike Pennell, who has absolutely no hope of getting out to the flat. So Wilson doesn't even think twice. He just gets it out quick, and Warren's able to do the rest. Mike Pennell, again, there's no hope of Mike Pennell running him down. And then they get an added boost when McDuffie is not able to make that tackle, and Bolton puts a hit on and doesn't wrap up. This is too bad because these are possibly the Chiefs' two best tacklers on defense. And they both aren't able to bring Warren down, and he gets a little extra yardage before Anadike Uzoma is able to take him down. The big thing here is that when you're dropping a defensive lineman, especially a D tackle like Pennell, the hope is that you're going to be having him cover like an underneath route, not to have him have to run out to the flat. He's not going to be able to do that. Even someone like Karlaftis is going to struggle if he's got a covered sideline to the sideline. The ideal would be if he, the area he's replacing, if Tranquil's area was something where there would be like a hitch or a crossing route that he could get under. Honestly, if Pennell had been responsible for Darnell Washington's route, covering that would have been ideal. It's unfortunate that the drop came in a situation where he's dropping over a guy that's running out to the flat, especially a fast guy running to the flat, which schematically this one, the Steelers just had it over the Chiefs on this play, and Wilson recognized it immediately. If the drop had happened in a situation where maybe Bolton was blitzing, instead Tranquil had stayed out and Pennell was dropping to stay underneath this route, that could have been much more successful because you're not asking Big Mike to run that far. But in this case, it was a clear weakness based on the comparative schemes. Wilson identified it immediately, and Warren's off to the races for a big first down. I will say it is, it is fun to watch a guy like Big Mike, and I got to give him huge credit for his effort. This is a big man, and he's really trying. He's coming out there. I love the hand swipe right here. I don't know, it makes me laugh. He's just like, not going to be able to get you. And then he's slowing down and then assuming that this tackle is going to be made. And watch Mike Pennell when he sees that the tackle's not going to be made. He's like, oh no, kind of hops over. I'm so glad to have him back on the team. He's such a force against the run. And I'm sorry to make a little fun at your expense, Big Mike, but this is swipe there. And then they're like, oh, wait, a little jump there. Just makes me laugh. You can see it from this perspective here. You'll see this is Big Mike Pennell right there. He's going to drop out. And, Wilson saw it immediately. I've gotten on Wilson, especially during the Ravens game. I got on him a lot for making mistakes that a young quarterback would make. You're not expecting a veteran quarterback to make these kinds of mistakes. Well, this was a good veteran quarterback play. ID'd the coverage, got it to the weak spot immediately. Oh, so close for that arm reach. I don't know why it cracks me up so much. Not quite. And then at the end, he's like, wait. Big first down for the Steelers in the red zone. Now we get to 14:56 to go in the fourth quarter. At this point, the Chiefs are still only up they're up 16-10. So I think one of the things that kind of gets lost in this game was that it wasn't a blowout the entire game. It ended at 29-10, but we got into the fourth quarter and the game was still a one-possession game at this point, although the Chiefs were knocking on the door. So they've got a 1st and goal here at about the Steelers' 2-yard line. And let's take a look at what they do, and then we can break it down a little bit. So Mahomes is in the shotgun with Kareem Hunt to his right. Worthy runs his jet motion over to the left. They hand it off to Kareem Hunt behind 2 pullers, and he blasts in for a touchdown. That ultimately put the Chiefs up 22-10. They tried to go for 2 to make it a 2-touchdown lead, and they didn't get it. But let's take a look at what they did. So the Chiefs are coming out in 12 personnel. Their one running back is Kareem Hunt. Their 2 tight ends are Noah Gray and Travis Kelce, and their wide receivers are Justin Watson on the left and Xavier Worthy on the right. So the Steelers come in here, and it looks like they are in their base, but they're with 5 down linemen and just 2 linebackers. They've got Queen and Elandon Roberts, and then they've got their 4 defensive backs. So it's base to counteract the 12 personnel here. And so what the Chiefs are going to do, they're running to the right with Hunt, but he's going to follow 2 pullers. He's going to have Mike Caliendo pull and then Travis Kelce pull behind him. And so Hunt does a good job, if you notice, with his initial steps of kind of motioning, coming over to the other side and making sure he's patient and waits and gets in behind those pullers to go. Hunt, I think his footwork and vision have always been really good, and so he's able to do these little nuances that help him maximize runs here. So he comes around to the other side of Mahomes, makes sure he tucks in behind the pullers instead of just going full speed ahead. The Chiefs also motion Worthy over to the left, and if you notice, that allows them to leave Highsmith unblocked without Highsmith crashing in. See, Highsmith is worried enough about this motion that Mahomes might not hand this and instead toss it out to Worthy, that he hangs back. And so that allows them to leave him unblocked and have him not really be involved in the play whatsoever. So Kelce and Caliendo are going to pull. Tooney is going to try to get inside of Cam Hayward and wall him off. And the same thing here with Humphrey and Elandon Roberts, who's blitzing. They're just going to try to wall them off and keep them over to this side. Then you're going to have Trey Smith blocking here, Juwan Taylor blocking here, and then Noah Gray is taking TJ Watt. But the pulling Mike Caliendo is going to help wall off TJ Watt. And then Travis Kelce comes through, and he actually takes care of 2. He takes care of the DB here and Patrick Queen together. Another, for the Kelce doesn't block crowd, just watch what he does on this play. So here you go. You got the pulling. Humphrey does enough to wall off Roberts. Tooney has walled off Cam Hayward. Taylor and Smith are blocking down. Noah Gray initially struggles a little bit with TJ Watt, but then he gets the reinforcement from Caliendo coming around to wall him off. And look at Kelsey here. Kelsey takes on the DB and then does enough to also prevent Patrick Queen from getting to Hunt, and Hunt's able to cut this inside and get into the end zone. Now, you may have noticed, and I feel like this is a legitimate gripe, if you watch the block of Juwan Taylor here. So Taylor's trying to wall, it looks like Ogunjobi off, and Ogunjobi's able to fight through here. And as he's going, you can see Taylor's arm wrapped around here. And then he releases, but he does do a little bit of a yank there and then release. I mean, I feel like that's a legitimate gripe from Steelers fans that should have been a holding call. There are instances, a lot of times when you get out of position, the refs give you a small grace period where it's like, okay, just get your hand out now. And one could argue that that's happening here, but this is a pretty long grace period. It's hard to tell, right? These are subjective calls. Some refs' grace period is longer than others, but if a Steelers fan was upset that this wasn't called holding, I can understand that. And I think Ogunjobi was upset too. You can see him gesturing back at the ref like, you saw that, right? So let's look at it from this viewpoint. Again, I'm always impressed with Hunt's footwork and patience. Look at him get in behind the pullers. You can see Hayward, unfortunately for the Steelers, kind of helped Tooney out by releasing outside, so it was easier for Tooney to wall him off. You see Humphrey walling off Landon Roberts here. And then Smith struggles a little bit with Keanu Benton. Benton kind of tosses him a little bit and gets aside, but again, enough to keep him from penetrating through. And this is the kind of gripe that the Steelers might have. Ogunjobi is trying to split right here. He does get inside of Taylor, and you can see Taylor's arm and then release. And Ogunjobi feels like he was held, and I can understand. Look at him pointing back at the ref like, you saw that, right? I mean, it's possible this is like that kind of grace period idea where it's like, well, once his hand's in the wrong position, you got to let go, and then he lets go. But I don't know. I'm not an official. I can tell you from this standpoint that it seems like these are pretty subjective as far as how long certain officials let certain plays go. I've definitely seen something like this called a hold before. But you also have cases where it's not called a hold, and the Chiefs got the fortunate call this time. Here's the pull, and you can see Caliendo helps wall off. And look at Kelsey. Kelsey comes up to take Elliott, and he neutralizes Elliott, and then is also able to come over and make sure Queen isn't involved either. And Hunt's able to sneak into the end zone. So the Chiefs get a 2-possession lead. They end up having a 12-point lead as they fail the 2-point conversion. But this is when they really started opening the game up. We pick it up with 14-13 to go in the game. The Chiefs are up 22-10, and the Steelers are facing a 3rd and 15 at about their own 24-yard line. So let's take a look at this play. We've got Wilson in the gun, Jalen Warren to his left. Drops back to throw, ends up getting some pressure, dumping it in the flat to Pat Freiermuth. He gets tackled by McDuffie, who strips the ball out, and the Chiefs recover. This play ultimately really was the final nail in the coffin probably for the Steelers. They were down 2 possessions and giving the ball up to the Chiefs in their territory. But let's take a look at what happened here. The Steelers come out in 11 personnel. Jalen Warren, the running back, Pat Freiermuth, the tight end. Their 3 wide receivers. This is Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson here, and George Pickens down here. The Chiefs match the 11 personnel with what? So this is Bolton and Chanel here. It looks like this time they still have 3 down linemen. So let's see. They've got Bolton and Chanel. This must be a dime package. Let's see the defensive backs. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, this is dime. So they've got 6 defensive backs, 2 linebackers, and 3 down linemen. 3-2-6 dime. And what they end up doing is they just run a cover 2, but since it's 3rd and 15, look how deep. They end up just running a cover 2, but dropping their shallow defenders way deep, being willing to give up anything close to the line of scrimmage. So the Steelers route combination here, they're just running essentially all verticals. And then they release Pat Freiermuth into the flat. So the Chiefs just drop back, run with the verticals, essentially give Wilson no options down deep, getting everybody back. And then they release Freiermuth in the flat, which the Chiefs are perfectly happy to allow that dump off, which they do. And McDuffie comes up to tackle and does a great job, as he always does. He's so good at forcing fumbles, and he does so here. He manages to just rip the ball out from Freiermuth, and Nick Bolton falls on it for a big turnover for the Chiefs. From this perspective, you can see Wilson. One shout out to the great pass rush win from Charles Omenihu here. Doesn't collect a sack, but this was a great pressure from him. And this is, again, what we talked about when discussing the Chiefs pass rush earlier in the first segment of this film review, is that this is what they're going to be. They're going to be this kind of complementary. They might not win in 2 seconds or under 2.5 seconds, but if you hold the ball for 3.5 to 4 seconds, if this pass rush can continue to get into the quarterback like they are here, this is going to be really successful. And then here you can see McDuffie grabbing on, getting the ball with his left hand and managing to pull it out, and Nick Bolton gets on it for a huge Chiefs turnover. So for the last play of this Christmas Day film review, we jumped to 10:05 to go in the game. The Chiefs are up 29-10. The Steelers have a 4th and 20 at the Chiefs' 42-yard line. Let's take a look at the play that ensues. We've got Russell Wilson in the shotgun. He's got Pickens to his left. Drops back to throw. Ends up throwing it deep left to Pickens, and the ball is knocked down by Jaden Hicks for turnover on downs. Chiefs get the ball back up 19. So, what happened on this play? The Steelers come out in 11 personnel. Najee Harris is the running back. Pat Freiermuth is the tight end. They've got 3 wide receivers, Van Jefferson up top, Calvin Austin in the slot, and then George Pickens to Wilson's left. The Chiefs are running a very deep Tampa 2 concept. So they've got the 2 deep safeties, and then Nick Bolton, the middle linebacker, is essentially playing. So it kind of is almost a cover 3 kind of concept. Really have deep halves, but have someone deep making sure they're manning the middle. They drop their underneath defenders very deep as well, just kind of allowing everything underneath, but really squeezing everything deep. The Steelers run Pickens deep to the corner. Jefferson goes deep, and then Austin comes deep on a corner as well. So Wilson drops back to throw and ends up going for Pickens trying to hit the whole shot in the cover 2. And Jaden Hicks, the Chiefs' rookie safety, who has been very much hyped. I think he was kind of called a big draft steal when we got him in the 4th round. And I'll say he's really living up to it in his rookie year. He's been done as much as one could expect. And how about cap off the win for the 1 seed by knocking the ball away from possibly the best jump ball receiver in the NFL, George Pickens. Just awesome for Jaden Hicks to be making plays like this. He got flagged for this celebration right here. I'm guessing it was for doing it right over George Pickens, because the Chiefs have been doing this celebration on defense all year. They're kind of coming out thumbs down. No idea what the significance is. I know this also isn't unique to the Chiefs, because I have seen this done by other defenders in other games, but I'm guessing Hicks got the penalty because he did it over George Pickens, which resulted in an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Here's the throw one more time. And, I mean, look at that. To be able to knock away a jump ball from George Pickens is prognostically very good for a defensive back's future. High hopes for Jaden Hicks in Chiefs Kingdom. It was nice to see him kind of put the exclamation mark on this win with that big pass breakup. Thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate all of you who follow along here on the YouTube channel, those of you who follow the podcast wherever you download podcasts, and those of you who follow along on social media at STCF715 on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. We will have a Week 18 preview coming out on Thursday, and then we'll have film reviews of the Chiefs and Steelers games from this weekend. Hope you're doing well. Until next time.